Memphis Light.
Hello, Internet. It's Sunday, 29th of December.
Sunday.
And as you may have gathered, Dan is not here. I'm here, Zachary Burgess, and Robert Kemp is also here.
I am.
And that's it. That's all you get.
That's what we get.
No, not even a guest or anything. It's just me and Rob.
Christmas duo.
Yep.
How was Christmas?
Nothing happened.
I mean, nothing happened in the good kind of nothing happened,
Right.
as in you get time to do
Neutral,
stuff.
neutral, nothing happened.
Right.
I haven't even had an actual roast yet.
Oh.
There's like two roast things. I think one of them's a ham and the other one's something else. But they've been in the freezer since before Christmas and we haven't had them yet. It's like, when are we doing that?
Is this like some new tradition? Like you going full pagan and having it like for New Year's?
I don't know why we didn't have it. I guess, I mean, I was the only one in the house at Christmas. So I guess we would have had it at Christmas.
Oh, where was everyone else?
I don't know. They went over to my sister in the morning.
And you didn't join?
No.
Oh, all right. I mean, I approve. That probably is quite nice.
Well, I mean, if it's not a dinner, what's the point?
Man, I would not get away pulling that card. I mean, yeah, that probably would have been quite nice because I don't want to complain too much because people can probably hear what I'm about to say and could probably overhear what I'm saying. But like I dislike Christmas. Like I don't mind the whole idea of like going. Like it's a specific period of time blocked out to go see all the family, get that all done. Again, I don't mean that too negatively, but you just ultimately it's a whole lot of faff to do nothing. Like, well, and it just results for me. That's what it results in. Like since Christmas Day, it has just resulted in me doing nothing. Not through choice, like there's been just a severe inability, and that is this period. I think it feels like a waste.
I like the way it used to happen in like when I was a child through teen. It was just like our two halves of the family basically did alternating years of one family having Christmas and then the other family having Christmas. And it was just like one day you just go on Christmas, everyone would be there, that would be it. And then that is it.
Yeah.
And you don't even see the other half of the family until the next year.
Oh, really? Huh. Interesting. So you didn't have to do like the Boxing Day shuffle?
No.
Or...
We just had one. And
so,
like the incredibly rare year where both families turned up and it was like, this is far too many people.
Yeah. I mean, in one way or another, that's how it's always been with me. Like, I've always had to do the Christmas Day and then a Boxing Day shuffle in some way. Like, at the moment, it's because of Gnome's family splits and stuff like that. But then in the olden days, it used to be like, because we were kids, right? And annoying. Like, we'd be on our own with mum and dad on Christmas, right? That would be our day. And then Boxing Day would be see the relative pile,
right?
Or one of the relative piles at least. And everyone would go bombard that house. And apparently that still kind of happens on my family, but because I've got other Boxing Day things to do, I'm no longer part of that.
Right.
To the point where I don't really even hear that it's happening because it's just assumed I'm not going to be there, and they assume right because I'm just busy.
I mean, I feel like the way I had it in my childhood was just like, I don't think that's going to come back though for like the next generation, for my sister's kid or whatever. I don't think we're going to be doing that again on with those two halves of that family.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, we sort of are yeah. Again, not to be harsh, but while everyone's alive.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's that. It can only last for so long.
Yeah, things.
Although in our family, we did kind of stop doing that before all of the grandparents had died. So,
fair enough. Yeah.
Although I guess that was sort of just because of the precise layout of ages in our family. Like there is a kind of in my family there is kind of a gap in ages between like me and my sister's kid. There's nothing in that gap basically.
Yeah. There's a dead zone. Yeah, that's pretty much the same on my side of the family anyway. On Gnome's side, it's a bit more complicated than that, but it's but we don't see most of the gap fillers. because she's got lots of older brothers, right, and older
Right.
that have older kids,
Yeah.
and so would effectively be in the middle, but we don't see a lot of them on the regular. So it could have been a wide gamut. I might have found someone on my level, So, I mean, I'm maybe nearly 40, but like my mentality definitely isn't.
Well, sure.
Apart from when it comes to managing the books, obviously.
You don't want to discuss that at Christmas.
Then I'm a stickler. Well, no, I don't really discuss much of anything. That's sort of the problem.
Well, that's where you need someone who can talk about video games that you only see like once a year and be like, holy shit, what did you play this year?
Yeah. Well, I hadn't seen my brother for a while, so we ended up doing that for a bit.
Sure.
But then you don't do that like all day. You're like,
well, no, you do it for 2 hours on a podcast. Twice a week. Well, no, every 2 weeks.
Twice every 2 weeks. Well, once every 2 weeks. Well, twice every 2 weeks if you count the Happy Salad videos. This is the podcast about video games.
Yep.
This is the podcast part. Anyway, go check out the Happy Salad YouTube channel for...
Yeah, I'll plug in early. That's better for metrics, theoretically.
Yes, yeah. Get it in the first few minutes.
Rather than doing it right at the end when no one's listening any longer.
Like and subscribe. You can also get this podcast on YouTube as well now if you fancy it.
Yep.
Although I wish YouTube wouldn't keep classing podcasts, even though you have to add them to YouTube as a podcast. I wish it wouldn't like just filter them all in as videos, right? You click the videos tab on your channel and it's now...
Well, right, yeah, we discussed about that before.
Yeah,
right?
it's interleaved with the podcast.
And obviously it's for us, it's literally 1-to-1, basically,
pretty much,
between videos and podcasts.
Yeah, so it just looks kind of ugly on the YouTube channel, which is a shame.
Unless you want to start making custom thumbnails for every podcast.
Yeah, or we split the podcast into a different channel. Yeah, so it's a possibility. I've thought about it, but I'm like, can't be asked. I still haven't signed us up for a Blue Sky. That would be the easiest thing in the world.
And it would also make Dan happy, I guess.
Yes, it would.
But then he could do it too.
I mean, he could. The maintenance doesn't have to all be me, guys. Well, no, he did build the whole website.
Yep.
Like, he's going to ride on that for years to come. Thanks, Dad. Hope you feel better.
This is the traditional podcast thing that we do when someone's not here.
Yep. Slight jibing. Yeah, Dad's out because he's unluckily got a bit of COVID. I think after Christmas.
That's what you get for living in London.
Well, no, he's been here. That's the thing. He caught it.
I suppose.
He's in the neighbourhood.
But do we know whether he caught it here?
No, I guess not.
He could have caught it just slightly before Christmas.
I guess not, yeah. I mean, we were a bit worried the last couple of days because Gnome's sister got that there Noro, and we're like, or something there similar thereof, and it's like, look, we can't have it a frickin' third time. That would be the worst. And it's like, no, we're fine, we're good. But we've probably had that one.
Do you don't give him immunity to that?
No, I've got
probably not.
I've got no idea. No idea how. I mean, I guess you do get some immunity to viruses, right?
Yes, but it depends whether it's one of the faster mutating ones or whatever. Or whether there's just like multiple parallel strains at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably likely, right? Because that's kind of what happened to Corona, right? There was lots of strains at once.
Well, yeah, but the colds normally just do like a 1 per year mutation, right? Basically.
Kinda, yeah. That seems, so they say anyway, which is a slightly oddly regular cadence, right? You'd think it would be...
Well, it's just because it's like everyone gets it, and then that gives it the chance to mutate, and then whichever one wins the mutation war is the one that carries on to the next time.
Yeah. But why only one? It's not, do they have some kind of like...
Well, I mean, it's probably...
Highlander battle.
It's probably only one on like a country scale or whatever. It's probably not global. I bet every country probably has its own specific cold strain that lasts each year.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's just it. They're just doing like global cycles, like because everyone travels more at Christmas, so that's where they deliver it.
Did.
Yeah. I bring you the gift of snot, which I don't know. I've had an awful lot of These last 2 weeks, I have been Booger Town.
Yeah, I had a minor thing, but it was very minor. I didn't get any, actual tiredness or anything. I was just stuffed up a bit.
Oh, don't talk to me about time. Like my sleep patterns are friggin' annoying at the moment because I did that thing. This is another reason of why, like I feel like this Christmas period has been like wasted. Like this limbo period has basically been wasted for me because
you slept a bunch.
Yeah, I've slept loads.
But isn't that good in the long term?
I mean, yeah, presumably for my health, it's a really, really good thing. But it's like 10-hour sleeps most nights.
That'd be nice.
I mean, it's got to the point where it's annoying though, because it happened to me this morning where we had a bit of a gaming session last night. It was nearly 1 when I went to bed. So I rolled over this morning and saw the clock and it had said 7:30. A bit and like a voice in my head was like, "You haven't had your 8 hours," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, okay, fine." Blinked and it was like 9:30. I don't even know.
That's still fine.
Yeah, but that's like 8.5 hours, so that's okay. It feels acceptable today, but like it just annoyed me that just happened. That it's like 7:30. Okay, that's cool. This is in my control. And then I look again, and somehow 2 hours have moved, and it's in my head. There is no gap in that happening. It's just like.
I mean, that's better than the thing that I had I think I may have mentioned on the podcast before that I had a few times where you dream that you look at the clock and it's like 12 and then you actually wake up and it's like 6. It's like, fuck.
That's quite funny. I've definitely had the dream where I've definitely had dreams where I've known that was happening though, right? I've looked at the clock and it's not been... It's like
a logical time.
Well, no, yeah, that. Or it's been like an alarm clock I haven't owned for like 30 years.
Okay, that's maybe slightly different.
Like this old, like, fake wooden thing I used to have. Do you remember that thing? Like, this tiny little red LED clock that had like an Atari finish to it. Yeah, every now and then that comes up in my dreams. I don't know why. Maybe I really love that clock. I bet my parents still have it somewhere.
Probably.
They have been a little bit better of late of like trying to get rid of stuff.
Your stuff or their stuff?
Mostly mine, I think. But normally it comes here.
Well, it's because they have to check.
Yeah.
They have to know if you want any of this shit.
Yeah, which is good. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know. They must be. They're getting a little better anyway. A little better. Also, they're telling me of all the disasters that we may inherit with that place. Like, should the day come that we inherit that house,
right?
We wouldn't be able. Let me put it this way: I don't think we could sell it in its current form. I don't think that would be legal.
Okay.
Or at least not for, standard house prices. I don't know if how that works, right? Because presumably, like, was it Homes Under the Hammer or something like that? The people are buying absolute wrecks of houses. So presumably now there must be like some, like it's totally legal to actually sell a house in bad condition, but perhaps it's, or with oddities, but you can't sell it as a place to live. Like maybe that's the...
Sure. How bad can it really be? It's a semi-detached house as well. It's not like it can fall down on its own.
No, well, it's not bad in that way. It's bad in the like electrics and sort of
so is
way.
every house that's not even slightly old at this point.
Yeah, there's definitely some weird skeletons though. The more I speak to Dad about it, he's like, "Yeah, but that works like this," and I'm like, "How could that possibly work like that? Why would anyone do that?"
Because that's how it's been. I mean, even like technically the electric stuff in our house is actually relatively new compared to the rest of the house and all of the inbuilt wiring. Like the actual fuse box or whatever is relatively new, but that doesn't stop the whole thing that I have with like how if you turn on one of the outside garden plugs, it just blows the whole half of the house.
Oh wow.
Which inconveniently includes my bedroom.
Well, at least you know.
Yeah, but it's really annoying because it's like every time it happens, I'm like...
Someone pushed the switch.
Yeah, someone pushed that one switch that I keep saying trips the fuse every time you switch it. And it's doubly stupid because I
just put a big red sticker on it.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's the plug that is used for the pond fountain or waterfall thing in the pond.
What a feature.
Yeah. But like... For a long time, the actual fountain part was broken, so it wasn't on at all. But then once it got fixed, it was like every time you flick that switch, it blows the fuse. But then the trouble with that is that because the troubleshooting was being done with the pump, so you go and turn the switch on, and then you're like, well, the pump still isn't working. It's like, yeah, because the fucking fuse is tripped again. You have to remember that every time you flick that switch, you have to go and look at the fuse box first to see whether that's the problem, because it probably is.
So does it stay working if you then just is it like an RCD box? You can just flip the fuse back on?
Yeah. It's like, as long as you don't turn that switch on or off, it can maintain its state once you've done it.
Right. So it's the process of the switch flipping. Must be like a weird short somewhere in the middle of the switch.
Well, I've always assumed it's just particularly because it's that pond pump, I assume that it's the load as the pump tries to start up that blows the circuit.
Yeah, it could be.
Because there's probably too much stuff on that one half of the house. Because there's a hot tub attached to that as well, also, obviously.
Okay, obviously.
But yes, it's very inconvenient for me because that circuit just happens to include my bedroom, even though it's technically the downstairs circuit. Because like the downstairs circuit that goes to the plugs that go to the outside also goes into my bedroom.
I mean, I can see why they would do that
because
while they were building the
yes.
extension. Yeah, but also, yeah, it's like I discovered the other day. I was trying to fit I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast, but I thought I could fit. There's things I've always wanted to do in the kitchen, like that I wanted to change to make it more smart home happy, right?
Yeah.
And we've got under cabinet LED lights that are they're wired into most of the cabinets. There's a couple that don't have it, which that mildly annoys me. But that's a problem for another day. They missed it. The previous owners bothered to put these lights in, but for some reason on one cabinet they didn't do it. Again, I can understand why, because there's like couple of door frames in the way. So right. I can see why it would be mildly annoying to do it. But they wired that in on the mains ring, not on the lighting ring.
Right.
And that annoys me, because that then means I can't just put a lighting ring smart switch in, because lighting rings are fused at a much lower ampage than mains rings. So the socket on which these things are plugged in is fused itself. So you can't really put a smart light switch on top of a fused line, and that back box isn't deep enough for me to put some kind of other smart switch behind the fuse either. So I can't actually do it unless I get someone in to help. And Noam has been I don't know why, mildly reluctant to get in contact with our usual handyman. So I need to find a handyman, basically. I need to know someone. That's how I always want to do these things. I want to do it with someone I know. Like I know an electrician, but he hasn't been around to come sort some stuff out for us. Maybe I just know unreliable handymen.
Maybe
they do good jobs, but like getting them to actually do the job is
apparently
the problem.
Don't ask your parents.
Yeah, also don't do that. Yeah.
Well, I meant don't ask your parents for who they use.
No, I will not be doing that. No. I believe my uncle still does some of their stuff for them, but not the electrics. Yeah, so that's what's going on. Also, like, in terms of like loot this year, Marzi did very, very well for himself.
Well, naturally, as children have to.
But he doesn't know. He's not old enough to know what the hell's going on.
Well,
yet.
No, but that's the trick, though. You give him all the stuff before he realizes that he's getting too much stuff, and then you start giving him less.
It annoys me. I mean, okay, everyone was very generous with Marzi, and I am appreciative of that. But it was like nearly a carload's worth of stuff just for Miles, including. I don't know if you spied it yet, Zach. There's this horrible VTech kids drum set.
Because he already hits things all the time anyway. He's going to be a drummer when he grows up.
I mean, I don't mind that. I don't mind giving him a bit of a musical bent. Like, he definitely does love music and, likes jiving around to it and stuff. Like, he's I guess typical too, really. I don't know if that's particularly standout, but... And at least for 24 hours, he has loved this thing. I think it's wearing thin already, fortunately, and also I think its batteries are dying because it keeps resetting itself, which is just as annoying as when it's working. It's probably more so because it has. VTech don't just make like sensible sounding toys. Like there has to be a voice happening at all times almost, or it has to be like talking to you or being like, yeah, well done, yeah, ooh, yeah, I'm a drum set. Yes, I know you're a bloody drum set, shut up. It's full on. They did this to us last year as well. They got us like an incredibly annoying, noisy toy.
Forcing some kind of Amazon wish list and be like, only buy these things.
Yeah. I mean, and the problem was, in fairness to Marzi, he absolutely loved that thing as well, but that really did have to get discontinued, shall we say. Yeah, and that then led to us having to do a major sort out, adding to the sort of annoying nothing of this Christmas period, like of making room for some of this stuff and or putting stuff in rotation, I suppose, like finding homes for the stuff we don't necessarily want him to have right now because he's got too much stuff. So there's now at least a gap in the cupboard under the stairs into which this drum kit can go past a certain hour of the day. Thanks, relatives. I mean, he does love it. I can't deny that, but good God, it's so annoying to live with. So annoying.
You need to make that like a summer toy and only have it in the back garden.
Yeah, annoy everyone else.
Yeah. As soon as you get a noise complaint, then he won't understand that, but like, I'll at least give you a full-on reason to be like, nope, the police said we have to stop.
I mean, another one of the really generous gifts was my mother-in-law got him a bike, like a proper bike.
That seems a bit early.
Yes, he can't. Basically, when he's sat on the seat at its lower setting, he can get to the pedals when they're horizontal, but the moment they go below that, you can't reach them. It doesn't matter anyway. When the pedals doesn't bloody construct, the threading seems wrong on it, and we can't get it into the pedal. No one has been able to get this thing into the pedal.
Okay.
So we've got this big thing that he can't really use for maybe the best part of a year, I reckon, before he can actually use it. And we don't, and apparently the receipt has been lost, so we're now not quite sure. Like, okay, can we not take this back? Like, get it sorted and replace? It's become a bit of a mess. It's become a thing, but a very thoughtful gift. Unfortunately, ill-timed. And now we have to deal with it. Now the pixelated sunglasses have fallen from the sky. I should sound a little more grateful. I mean, I am. We've received some lovely stuff, but is it Biggie? Like, not, but not about money, about stuff. Like, more stuff, more problems.
It's technically the same thing, I guess.
It's very true fact. Biggie knew what he was talking about.
Obviously.
So that's been my period. Unfortunately, I haven't played a whole lot of games. I haven't really watched anything of particular interest on TV. I mean, I watched that Wallace and Gromit.
Oh, I still haven't. I really should.
It's pretty good, is what I would say. I mean, I think it's like Aardman's current standard, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like it's not a patch on the original 3 Wallace and Gromits. Those are the absolute classics, right?
Yeah.
And everything since then, I kind of put into like, modern Aardman to me.
Corporate Aardman.
Corporate Aardman, yeah. So it's on that level. It's probably slightly better than that last Chicken Run.
Mm.
But it's all right. It's all right. It's also like feature length, which sort of surprised me. It's like I thought they were going to do like another little half-hour thing.
Did they also do a little half-hour one as well? Or was that last year?
I
think there's been another relatively modern short one.
It was a while ago now. I think Of Loaf and Death was like a half-hour one. Curse of the Were-Rabbit was the first film. And then I think Of Loaf and Death was after that and was like a half-hour thing. Mm. And then this is this is another feature length because it's got Netflix on it, I suppose.
Sure.
So Netflix want a film that they can put out globally. I don't think America's got it yet. I think we got it Christmas Day.
Well, you would hope so,
but everywhere else has to wait a little bit. And you can watch it on iPlayer, so that's nice.
Yes,
don't need Netflix. Good old BBC. Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. It's worth a watch. The problem I think like me and Kip has sort of picked up on was it's like, okay, it's got jokes, right? They exist, but I think what they've done is they've taken all the jokes that would normally be in their like half-hour period
and spread them out.
And now it feels like there's like it's the same volume but less dense.
Mm.
But there's some funny stuff. I like Up North News. That's good. Also, the voice of I can never remember her name. It's Diana something. It's the actress that plays Kunk.
Right.
She's in it as well. And it's just like, I like doing that thing in animation where it's just like, I recognize who that is. I know who you are. Yeah, that's all we ended up really watching. Apart from like, we noticed like the Spotify app on my TV now has an option to where it will play videos if it has one available. They've finally done that.
Right, so it's like linked to the music.
Yeah, so it's been on it's been on the app for a while, or at least the Windows app. I assume it's been on the web and phone apps, but not that you'd watch video. I don't know. I don't watch videos on my phone. Who does
those
that?
Videos that it's playing actually like on Spotify, or are they just YouTube?
No, I think they're coming from Spotify.
Okay, that's going to give them a whole lot more data to handle.
Yeah, it really does. Presumably that's why they've staged the rollout to places. Because we noticed it had finally come to my TV, so we had that on for a bit. It's Christmas music is almost universally terrible, but it's like my family want it on.
Right, sure. I mean that's also traditional Christmas activity.
I mean, it really, I really do hate it. like it's not even a small amount of like. It gets funnier when it did get funnier when we found the turn the video option on though. Like when I noticed it and started putting it on, because then you get to see like these awful videos.
Well, that's because all Christmas music is from the 80s.
Yeah. Oh boy, the Shaking Stevens one, right? Snow is falling.
Right, yeah.
Like it's just him standing in probably increasingly creepy situations throughout the video. Like he's just there.
Is it like some kind of Ghost from Christmas Past thing where he's actually not there and he's just like, I'm just going to lurk in these scenes?
I would believe that. Yeah. My personal favorite is probably like the East 17 one, right?
Right.
It's like I love that they did it in black and white, and not just black and white, but like really like very contrasty black and white. And then presumably like what must have been a relatively difficult compositing technique of the time just had them kind of move like wafting around the frame. It always looks like a parody of a Christmas video, but actually no, this was the Christmas video of the time.
Right.
And there's a bit where everything catches on fire, but it's white fire, so it's just woof. It's a funny video. I don't know. It makes us laugh. Stay down.
Videos, just
videos.
Talk about regular podcast topics. Talk about YouTube bullshit.
Oh yeah.
One of the shitty mobile game company adverts that I can never escape has gone to maximum shit. It's now AI voice on top of AI generated images.
Oh yeah, no, I get a few of those.
It's like it's not even fake gameplay any longer.
Yeah, I get plenty of ads, especially on my Facebook feed. Actually, especially if I'm doom scrolling,
right? Yeah,
and I've left the audio on. Like they'll be like, here I am talking about this thing that will improve your life.
Yep. Well, the other YouTube advert that I've run into another patch of, I guess, is in a similar vein. Although most of them have managed to not be AI voice, but there is some amount of AI voice in them. Is like bullshit products, obviously. But it's just like you could easily have like the bullshit product bingo card of like what these adverts have in them every time. Except you'd win every time because they all have them. But it's just like it's always the same. Where it's like
hip replacements.
No, it's these products, and they always have the same exact things. Where it's like invented by university student / disgruntled former employee of the company, and get this product before it gets shut down by the big pharma or whatever, or whatever corporation is of this.
In its country of origin.
Yeah, and then it's like, and it's not on Amazon to distance itself from knockoffs, even though that is what makes it a knockoff.
Yeah.
It's just like, they all have these exact same things. It's practically just the script. Like, if it's not AI at the moment, it probably will be soon. They'll probably just have, like, this is the default script of this advert, and we just feed it in, and it just finds and replaces all the key points.
I guess it's like today's working phishing format, I suppose. Like, it's the scam du jour.
The thing is, a couple of these products, the one that I've seen most often probably is one of those bullshit, like, it's an electric heater thing that's just a plug block. Like, it plugs directly into the wall and, like, the heating elements are right there. And
that sounds bad.
Yep. But, like, the reason that I know it's bad is because those ones occasionally turn up in the charity shop.
Oh, no.
We always universally have to, like, fail them on the electrics because it's just, like, they don't have an accessible fuse or whatever. And it's just like, but beyond that, wouldn't want that anyway, because it's like, yeah, let's just plug this basically, heating element directly into a socket, probably at ground level, really close to carpet and everything. It'll just that's probably just a bad idea anyway.
Yeah, I don't like the sound of that. What a weird idea.
And those adverts are the worst for like those adverts are the worst, like most adverts for electric heaters, for the bullshit of just like, it heats up a room in 30 seconds or whatever. It's like, no, it doesn't.
No, it really doesn't.
And also,
if the room is a shoebox.
And also, it's just like, the university student who invented this came up with this new technique to make it heat better. And it's like, well, no, because like literally you can only put a certain amount of wattage into it, and that's how much heat it puts out. It's like, you can't defeat thermodynamics.
And it's probably one of those like awful, what do they call them? Like almost like those refrigeration pads, right? The one that they just reverse the polarity and they become like heat pads. And it probably is just one of those. And
they always have like, if you even look at one of these things, it's like it's just got basically a PC case fan that blows the air through. It's just like, this is obviously just made of random Chinese parts that we've assembled into a product.
Absolutely, universally, like these desk fans in here, they're just PC fans in a case.
Well, I mean, that sort of makes sense. I mean, for like a small fan, if all it's doing is blowing air, a fan is a fan, basically.
Exactly, it's the appropriate tool for the job. I'm not doubting that, but like. Yeah, they are PC fans, ultimately. It's the same stuff.
So yeah, those adverts have been turning up again. Mm. And, like I say, if you made a bingo card for it, you'd win every time because they're all exactly the same.
Until next year, probably. And the script will be a little different.
Thank God we're through the perfume advert land. From November to December is just non-stop perfume.
The ones... I'll tell you what, I don't normally see that format of ad, to be fair. Like that format of ad hasn't really come across, well, not my Facebook feed anyway, because most of the time I block YouTube ads now.
Well,
right?
yeah.
Although one did manage to get through on my Steam Deck variant of but it wasn't a video ad, it was like a static ad.
Right.
Like it clearly hadn't worked properly, but like there was a little bit of text in the middle of the screen and a blue button saying go to or something. And the skip button was still there.
Oh, sure.
So it was. I did at least not have to deal with a video ad, so that's something. But it was like it was a manual step I had to get through. I'll still take that. That's fine over video ads any day. Mm. But the format I get on my Facebook feed most of the time is like. It'll be like, listen to this one guy who's mastered the art of weight loss or something, and there's like this. He's kept all the scientists tell you they're wrong. Yeah. I've been a personal trainer for all my life, and look at me, I'm super buff, right? Follow my technique, and then they don't tell you what the technique is.
Well, no, obviously.
They click you through. but they make it sound like they're about to say it like all throughout the entire time, and I'm like, why am I even watching this shit? Like, I don't even like. It clearly works because like even a bit of my brain is going like, I just need to for some reason I can't scroll away. Like it's just so bad.
Yeah, but that's not because of the interest in the product.
No,
that's
it
just
really is.
You're interested in like how does this advert function? Like what is the trick here?
It just and they're really long
Yep.
as well. I noticed like they're just like almost bafflingly no It's like. What does it remind me of? It reminds me of watching like an American, basically any American show. Like there's bafflingly little content,
And they just replay the same thing over and over. Except in this case, it's just like it's often just like the same thing but recorded at different times. Or it's just like they've basically done the same script multiple times and they've just clipped it together.
yeah, almost that. Yes, there's like the same guy reading the same script, but it's not the same take.
Yeah.
And it's not the
or
same
he's talking
location.
to a different person, or he's on a podcast or something.
Yeah. It's really strange. And sometimes they'll just remix that into the same ad.
Yeah.
Like so you'll hear that script once and then you'll do it again immediately afterwards. It's so strange.
And I've seen a few cases of just like when they do AI voiceovers on top of real footage of a person, but you can tell that the words aren't synced up to their mouth or anything.
Oh, right. Is this a little bit like toilet block ads in this country, where for some reason they're all dubbed?
No,
right?
not dubbed. It's more like the one I saw actually several times was a really bad one where I think it was probably another weight loss thing or a fitness thing, but the footage they had was of a woman walking on a treadmill talking to the camera.
Right.
But the words weren't synced up at all. But it's even worse because, like, midway through the advert, the footage reverses, and you can, like, physically see that it's just playing backwards. It's just like, wow, that's super lazy.
Weird, but they've still tried to, like, dub the audio to...
Well, not dub, though. It's just, like, it's low res enough or whatever that you can't easily see that it's not that she's not talking. But it's clearly just they've just used this generic footage.
You can't see the lip sync because they thought, weird.
But yeah, that one's pretty bad. And I did manage to get an advert for one of the rare times where I'm like, I'm just going to report this one because I'm pretty sure this one is actually probably illegal because it's like, this is just a gun. Except technically it's an airsoft gun, except in their footage it's like they're showing it as, you know, they're demonstrating the product or whatever, and they're like shooting through coconuts. And I'm like, that's probably enough of a gun that this probably shouldn't be advertised on YouTube.
That seems of a caliber that you should not sell. Yeah. Or at least not without a billion permits and not online.
And I would imagine you're probably not even allowed to advertise airsoft guns on YouTube. That's probably against their ad rules.
That probably is, yeah.
I haven't seen that advert since, so, you know.
Well, I mean, I guess YouTube would know not to show it to you again.
Maybe.
But I guess that means there aren't variants of it.
Also.
Yeah, that's interesting. Can't say I've ever seen that.
Well, no.
I don't think I've ever been sold a gun online.
Yeah, I don't know how that one made it to me.
You wouldn't download an AK.
Yeah.
Except, well, I guess you could. You could 3D print it. Have you seen that? My mate of mine's got one of these, and like, have you seen that company Rocker? ROKR. They do like. Do you remember those old like dinosaur skeleton models you could make out of like bits of wood?
Bits of wood, yeah,
effectively. So they do like really fancy versions of that. Like so. Oh, here's an electric guitar you can build. Here's a marble run. Here's 2 marble runs, and here's the middle bit that connects them both together. If you really like, they do fancy stuff like that. Like Gnome hasn't had a chance to build it yet, but she's got gifted a cool cello.
Right.
Thing. And it does look pretty neat. But one of the things they do is an AK-47 that rapid fires rubber bands. It's pretty rad.
Yeah, I mean that is always the coolest. That was the thing that you always tried to build out of Lego. It's like you always wanted to build a rubber band gun out of Lego, but it was so hard to get to work right.
Yeah, and not like collapse on itself.
Well, yeah, the strain on Lego wasn't always very effective. Lego bends a lot more than you'd think.
Speaking of Lego, I've got a Lego bonsai tree to build.
Oh,
looks pretty cool.
see.
Yeah. I mean, it'll make this room look slightly fancier than sad spider plant over there. He's still not come back to life. He's sort of alive, but like hasn't fully come back to life after being destroyed by Dan.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Just like
and mostly eaten by the cat. Yeah. Yep. Hang in there, buddy.
So you're going to get a fake plant instead. Clearly, there's a solution.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. AstroTurf.
Speaking of things in your room, I guess. I think my dehumidifier has finally won the moisture war in my room after running it for 2 weeks as much as possible. Now
so it's not actually producing much.
Liquid. Well, it's producing less, but it's seems like it's evened off, and also if you turn it off, it has a readout on it for the moisture or whatever, the humidity level. And it goes back up really quickly because that's a really tiny room, obviously. And if I'm in there, it's obviously the moisture levels are going to go up again.
Sure,
yeah. But turning it on, it goes back down really quickly. So it's it's clearly just only air moisture at this point rather than it gradually pulling it out of all the stuff in the room.
Well, that's neat.
So I'm I guess this worked.
Yeah.
Success.
I mean,
unfortunately,
the way to tell will be where how much mold growth you get over
sure. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's not like I can just stop using it now because it's still putting out a certain amount of moisture per day.
Sure,
it's still going to have to be on, just maybe not as much on. I could probably actually just set it to the fully automatic mode and just leave it to maintain a level rather than trying to run it continuously.
Yeah,
I guess
that might be a good idea. Yeah, you've reached that point.
Yeah.
Everything is crisp.
Relatively speaking.
Because with crisp and dry, the food stays crisp and dry. I never understood that. Crisp and dry oil, right? Because wasn't it split was it for deep fat fryers or was it for just frying in a pan?
I guess it depends what exactly dry means in that context.
Yeah.
Does it just mean that the oil evaporates off the food before you eat it, and therefore you're not eating a whole shit ton of oil?
I mean, maybe. Yeah. Crisp and dry. The food stays crisp and dry. Talking about advertising. That's one I remember.
I don't remember that. But that sounds like an American advert.
Oh, it almost certainly probably. No, I mean, maybe it was. My Crisp and Dry is probably an American brand that just came over, right? Like Shake and Vac.
That advert I do remember.
Put the freshness back.
What even was that exactly?
Well, I think it's a powder.
Yeah, I know, but what exactly was it? How does that work?
I mean, yeah, good question. Maybe you needed a certain amount of moisture in your room. You put the powder down and leave it.
Well, I mean, is that what it was? Was it just a desiccant that you're spreading on the floor and then it sucks the moisture out of the carpet essentially, along with the other crap that's in the moisture?
It's also leaving some fragrance behind or something.
Presumably.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it could possibly have worked. Maybe it was maybe it had some sort of, I don't know, if a static property or something, and things would gel to it. Is it solid Febreze, supposedly with its smell catching globules? Or
well, I mean, Febreze makes so much less sense. Where does the smell go after it's captured it? It just stays there.
Just floats around and then lands on stuff. So basically, now all your surface.
You're just delaying the stench.
Yeah, ultimately. Well, maybe the true Febreze use case should be Febreze the shit out of your room and then open the door. Let it blow it all out.
Or just open the door to start with.
I mean, that does help. That does seem like a better option. It's not as quick as Febrezing something, though.
I mean, presumably the theoretical ideal is that the actual chemicals don't just absorb the scent into the capsules, but actually destroy it, chemically bond with it and actually make it not a smell any longer.
Because I mean, what's the implication here? That Febreze stays intact and it lands on your surface, and then it
evaporates, and then the smell comes back out.
But maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's there.
What permanent Febreze particles?
Yeah. So you've basically got these smell bombs in your house, potentially.
That'd be funny if it was just like, if you imagine it was just like water, where it's like it absorbs the smell and then it lands on the surface and then it evaporates so it's into like a solid form. But then you do that for years, but then like if you accidentally spill a glass of water, it re-smells all of those smell particles.
That would be quite bad. Why does it smell so bad on it? Dad spilled a drink.
Anyway, should we talk about the very small amount of video game news there is to talk about in this Christmas period?
I guess we should.
Probably.
People seem to like that Sonic 3, the film.
Sort of video game news.
Yeah, sort of video game news. I find it hard to believe that the Rotten Tomatoes score is really very high, right? I find that very hard to believe, having seen the first two films. It can't be that good, right?
If they got rid of the Hawaiian wedding bullshit, then maybe it would be.
Yeah, maybe if they actually focused on, a sensible plot.
Well, theoretically, it's got a well, I was about to say good plot, but it's only the plot of Sonic Adventure 2. A medium quality plot.
A plot with some potential. Just don't use the execution from Sonic Adventure 2.
And they do still have to tie it into their current plot as well, obviously, as has happened in other Sonic media, like Sonic X, for example.
Plenty of times. Yeah. So there's that. Apparently their Sonic's all right. And they are making a Sonic 4.
Hopefully not based on the Sonic 4 game.
No, it can't possibly be, right? Because this will be where the franchise really tanks, and everyone wants ugly Sonic back.
Yeah.
So that's happening. In other Sega-related news, the singer from Crush 40, Johnny, Gioeli, let's go with that. Johnny Gioeli, he is suing Sega for not paying him for the use of Live and Learn, as far as I can tell, seems to be the crux of it. And Live and Learn was the theme tune from Sonic Adventure 2, effectively.
Yeah.
And the funniest part of this article that I think we were reading, was it the Kotaku version or the Rock Paper Shotgun version of the article? Anyway, can't remember. Credit your sources. Apparently he wasn't aware that the track had been used in other properties, which I find somewhat baffling.
Yes.
Because it's been in Sonic Generations. It's definitely turned up in, Smash was the other one, right? It's definitely been in Smash.
Yeah.
And I want to say there's been variants of it in other Sonic material. I can't really think of it off the top of my head, but it feels like something that would just happen.
Mm. But the fact that he seems to be unaware that happened does lend credence to the idea that he hasn't been correctly compensated.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if they've been using it and he doesn't even know,
then that's clearly but he is aware of his contract and where he should be compensated for the use of that song. Then yeah, fair enough. He did then go on to say, look, I don't want to spoil my relationship with Sega here. He clearly likes working with them, but still, pay the man.
The real question is how will you still not know, even though they worked on games after Sonic Adventure 2?
Yeah, because he's not Crush 40 didn't go away after Sonic Adventure 2. They did more stuff. I think they're in. I want to say they did some stuff in Sonic 06, maybe not. And they definitely were in Black Knight. Not that I have played that game, nor does it sound like anyone really rates it, but they've been around. And Sonic Heroes, right? Sonic Heroes came after Sonic Adventure 2.
Although relatively soon after Sonic Adventure 2 compared to the rest of this stuff, like Smash Brothers or whatever.
Sure.
Although, did they use Live and Learn in Brawl?
Good question. I don't know.
I feel like they probably did.
Wow, so it must have been in Brawl. There's a good chance it would have been in for Wii U as well.
Because what other Sonic song are you going to use, really? Well,
I don't know what the implementation would have been in for 3DS.
Maybe not, because obviously the level was Green Hills, and you got to have some actual Sonic level music.
And maybe they would have chosen Open Your Heart or something instead of Live and Learn. But,
well, presumably there's going to be a very similar contract on that.
Well, yeah, you'd think. I prefer Open Your Heart as a song, but Live and Learn, I think, is the one that's like been more iconic for Sonic Adventure. Oh. I prefer that riff from Open Your Heart. It's a good riff. Also, I don't know. There's something about that the weird impact on an impressionable me, like seeing that Sonic Adventure intro sequence for the first time when I first powered up my Dreamcast, and I'm like, this is weird.
Well, because it was like that was the first time we'd had CG videos almost in games.
Yeah. Well, that's not true. The first CG Sonic intro I guess we would have been Sonic 3D.
Blast.
Yeah.
God damn it. That doesn't count. That I would class that as animation, not as CG. That's a slightly different thing.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I wonder. I think there has been like a Game Hut video back in the day of how that was actually done.
Sure.
Yeah, I wonder if that was. Oh no, that must have been like done in some sort of like.
I mean, it can still be a 3D model,
Silicon Graphics suite or something, and then they've had to figure out a way of.
It can still be a 3D model and not be what I would have called CG instead of animation. It's to do with like whether it's a computerized process of moving the model or whether it's hand moving a model. I think that's the defining feature between those.
Oh, I would put that all in CG. But, like if the original thing was a render as opposed to a.
I mean, sure, technically it is all CG.
Yeah. Well, you can sort of tell by the way his arms move in that sequence, right? It's all very
stiff.
Yeah. So there's that. What else was going on in news?
Not much.
Oh yeah. Don't turn your MetaQuest on if you haven't done so for a while. Top tip. Apparently there is a update bricking bug going around for Quest 2 and 3, especially if you haven't turned yours on for a while. And I definitely haven't turned mine on for quite some time, thanks to, being a parent and stuff, and it being mildly impractical right now. So I may have a bricked meta on my hands, I don't know. But I haven't, intentionally turned it on. We've kicked it a couple of times.
Yeah, we've made it ding a couple of times.
Yeah. So maybe there's a problem there. I assume it's to do because I did get an email a while back saying Meta I think Meta have changed some of their login process stuff again, and so it was asking me to log in and verify my birthday, which always worries me a little bit. And I'm like, well, that can wait. So yeah, I get the feeling it must have been something around that has gone a bit awry. But yeah, anyway, hold fire on updating your your Quest 2 and 3 if you haven't been using it. If you're using it at the moment, you're good. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Consumer advice brought to you by the Saladcast. And finally, the only other bit of news I have is that Sony have agreed or will be buying or have bought, not quite sure, 10% of Kadokawa. Now, if you're not aware who Kadokawa are, they are a major player in the world of anime and manga, primarily. But where this gets, and that's probably Sony's main interest in them, to be fair. Sony have an interest in anime and manga as well. They are in that sphere to an extent. But that is the main business of Kadokawa. But they just so happen to also own a few video game companies, including, I don't know, some small name like From Software. Woo! I don't think this means anything at this point. I think it would be mad for FromSoft to start entertaining the idea of being platform exclusive. I can see why Sony would want them to be, but I think Sony would need to actually buy from Kadokawa for that to ever really happen.
Well, I mean, that's what people thought was going to happen.
Yeah. Well,
but a
while back, Sony's letter of intent was kind of implying that they wanted to effectively buy Kadokawa.
Well, that would be more significant.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have seen necessarily, like, Sony could have bought from, and then, they could have continued publishing the games on all platforms. It would just be they'd be an internal developer. It's like, they'd just be a Sony developer. That wouldn't necessarily lock them onto Sony consoles.
Yeah, I mean, Sony are in the position where they could perhaps get away with that more than, say, a Microsoft can. Right? That's Microsoft have clearly, like, they're playing the money game now, Microsoft, right? That's why Indiana Jones will come out on PlayStation next year, and why they've been experimenting a little bit with multi-platform releases. It's like Microsoft are less fussed about exclusives because they're not in the position, they're not strong enough.
Well, sure, there's that, but also, like, is there still some lingering, like, things after the Activision buyout where it's like, we have to put this on multi-platforms to keep the regulators off our back?
On the Activision game side, absolutely.
Well, yeah, on the Activision game specifically, but I'm wondering if that also expands into, like, the rest of Microsoft, where they're like, let's try and not appear like so much of a monopoly, maybe.
I mean, maybe, yeah. Maybe they are lawyer-led. But I actually do think it's for their benefit at the moment. Sounds like they need the cash.
Well, yes, selling shit everywhere it can be sold probably makes more money than not doing that.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think this is going to affect it too much. Like, does this mean we'll see another Bloodborne? I don't know. I think FromSoft are up to I think they've got the freedom to do whatever the bloody hell they want at the moment.
Yeah.
And hopefully they won't change that, because everyone seems to like what everyone seems to like what merch From are selling, Also, they're going to have to, like, if they wanted any of their existing IPs, they're going to have to navigate the publisher landscape, because I don't know, like, I don't know if there's any one game there aren't many games that From produce that are published by the same people. Like, they have lots of publishers they work with across their IPs.
Wow, sure.
So that may be difficult to negotiate. That's what I'm saying. Now, whether, like, you see Bandai Namco, I had to pause to think that whether I'd said that right, because a bit of my head wanted to say Bando Namkai. Yeah, do you think they would want to give up Dark Souls? No. Do you reckon Microsoft, because it's Microsoft now, would want to give up Sekiro? Like, I don't know that that's the thing.
Yeah, but I think it doesn't actually matter at all, because FromSoft is, like, their games are just a style now.
Pretty much.
They just slap a different brand on it, and it's barely even that different when they do that. It's like Dark Souls and Sekiro and Elden Ring. It's just like, it's all basically the same.
I can see that, but I think Sekiro is the standout. I think that does play... It looks... I'll admit, outside looking in, it does look very similar, but Sekiro is supposedly the outlier in the sort of... And Bloodborne to a certain extent as well. But they're obviously Soulsborne games.
I mean, even the Armored Core one is basically that, just with robots.
You think that's...
I don't actually know much about any of these games, but it's what it seems like.
I mean, you're the only one.
I did attempt at one point to play a Dark Souls.
Yeah.
One day.
Every now and then I have that pang to be like, yeah, maybe I should actually.
I mean, you played that knockoff one, so you're closer than.
Oh, yeah, Flintlock. Flintlock is a bit Souls-like, and I didn't have a terrible time with that.
I mean, that's probably the closest game that any of us have come to playing to a Dark Souls, apart from me actually trying to play one.
Yeah. I get the feeling Flintlock was a lot more lenient, or a lot more forgiving than Souls games can be, especially the earlier Souls games. Like Dark Souls 1 just sounds evil in its structure, and something I probably wouldn't get on with. But Elden Ring even Elden Ring sounds far more forgiving.
Yeah.
Maybe the time will come. Even my brother's played Elden Ring, right, and he loves it. So
you're not into super long games like that, or at least one at a time, which means it could be a very long time before you get to it.
I know, and I am trying to not get too into ones like that. I mean, I've got a Yakuza.
Yakuza feels that slot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's that time of year that I normally start a Yakuza game.
You need to start a new Yakuza game to keep up with the release schedule of how far they are ahead of you.
Oh, I'm not keeping up.
No.
But Yakuza 6 is next on my list, so that'll be... Look forward to hearing about that soon, because I need to start that soon. I'll probably play Indiana Jones first, actually, because I haven't started that either. Been meaning to do that. That's it for news. Unless Zach's got any more surprising stuff.
No, definitely not.
I mean, that their Steam sale's been happening, I guess.
That's not even news. It's literally the thing that happens every single year.
I did spot that, like, they had a section for, like, that sort of evoked a little bit of, like, the old Steam sale feeling. They had, like, featured deep discounts or something, which is, like, a list of 10 games that have a 90% reduction.
I mean, there are a lot of them that have... I mean, even on my wish list, there's like 2 or 3 that are like down to 90% discounts.
Oh, nice.
That, even then, you don't necessarily buy them.
No.
It's like, I totally could go for playing Planet Zoo. That's down to like 90% off.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just...
Do you think it'll be like... Because have you actually started playing Coaster 2 yet?
No. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. Is like, I'm so disappointed by how Planet Coaster 2 seems to have gone. I'm just like, maybe I won't even go into Planet Zoo.
So the thing is, like, surely that whole... After Planet Coaster 1, that whole suite of their games, like Planet Zoo and... What was the other
Jurassic.
one? Yeah, Jurassic World. Evolution. And Evolution 2... They must all fit into a very
they're all
similar,
basically the same engine.
Yeah, very similar thing.
But it did seem like Planet Zoo actually, maybe more so than Planet Coaster even, did like its genre in a better way. Like, obviously Planet Coaster was just Roller Coaster Tycoon. And as we said at the time, it's just like, does it really advance the tech of this game? But it is just basically Roller Coaster. And I feel like Planet Zoo, obviously it's just Zoo Tycoon, but I feel like they maybe got slightly further than the tech of... Not that that's difficult, because Zoo Tycoon is super old, even older than Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Well, it's not like there haven't been other Zoo Tycoon games in the years.
But those probably also haven't really advanced anything. But then again, at a certain point, is there anything to advance in building animal enclosures? Because at least in the Roller Coaster Tycoon Planet Coaster thing, it's like the physics and like the simulation of the roller coasters is the important part, and how that reacts to you actually building the thing.
Sure, yeah.
Whereas in Zoo Tycoon,
that
it's just like
the challenge of the game, right? Building something that is acceptable.
And then in Zoo Tycoon, it's just like you're changing the texture of the ground, and then that makes the number go up. Like, that's kind of how those games work.
Well, yeah, and I suppose that even extends to like something like 2 Point, right?
Yeah.
2 Point Hospital. I liked 2 Point Hospital, but even the very minor change to the mechanical systems that put together 2 Point Campus, the 2 Point Campus didn't hold me. And I don't really understand why. Like, a 2 Point Campus seems like a perfectly competent game, but
get ready for 2 Point Museum.
Yeah. Which might have a similar problem. I think. Like,
probably.
Maybe. I mean, maybe I was riding on Theme Hospital nostalgia for 2 Point.
Probably,
Hospital, but yeah, something about its mechanics worked better with me than Campus's. Campus is more complicated. Like, there is more. I would argue there are just more mechanics to Campus, but somehow didn't sit right. Although I love their tone. I've got to point out, I love their tone, or I love Planet Coaster's tone.
Sure.
Chief Beef.
But you don't actually love Planet Coaster's tone, you love one thing about Planet Coaster.
I love Chief Beef, yeah. Possibly the greatest mascot invention of this century. Even though he's not a real damn mascot. We need to open a Chief Beef.
Can we integrate that into the fry shop? The battering shop.
The batter shop. I mean,
battered burgers are a thing.
I mean, yeah, Chief Beef can just be battered. It's fine.
That has some bad implications for a police officer.
I perhaps should have worded that more delicately.
And obviously, he also can't be doing the battery either.
No.
It's just a minefield, that is.
Yeah. Well, maybe you could. Maybe you could sell a burger just called a salt and battery.
No, you couldn't.
It's just got a single solid lump of salt.
I'm pretty sure at the time we were talking, like, maybe it's even in the video Planet Coaster, but did we mention Pizza Prison?
What? Oh no, I don't.
Because we were talking about.
We must have done in the video.
Because in the video there are like the spin-off other parts that's not burgers. Because Chief Beef is obviously the burger, and then there's the other ones that are the related brands, and they're like police themed or whatever. And I think we were like Pizza Prison, obviously. Like, I'm not sure that's a good idea.
Chief Beef's got to put you in pizza prison. Oh man, we should open a Chief Beef. We should get a Chief Beef van and go to EGX,
and then get sued by Frontier.
Oh no, we'd fully license it. We'd do the deal.
But then we're too late. Planet Coaster 2's already come out. Missed that branding opportunity.
Just wait for 3. We'll be fine.
I guess.
Get your burger cooking skills in. You've got a couple of years. Get your burger cooking skills in top shape. Get that steam cloche over the top and melt that cheese. That seems to be the hot burger technique right now.
Literally.
Indeed. No arguments here. I do think that steam cloche technique is slightly odd, though, because they like do it with the bun in place as well.
Yeah, you'd think that would make the bun damp.
Well, yeah, like structural integrity is at risk, surely. Well, I guess maybe that's why you have to toast the bun first. Like, do it have a lightly toasted bun.
So you're like untoasting it essentially by steaming it.
We need to resog this bread. That's it for news.
I guess.
Do you want to tell us what you've been playing, Zach?
I guess. Not super much. Like, this podcast is going to be mostly bullshit. Not even video games.
Woo! Just the season.
I suppose. I mean, I briefly managed to get back into Factorio, but like it still didn't stick. I did a tiny bit more on the legendary grinding mechanisms, and I kind of got spoiled on the idea of this by like a YouTube thumbnail. But there's one specific thing you can make which is like kind of weird in the quality mechanism, because on the volcanic planet you can cast metal things directly from molten metal that you're making from lava. And quality doesn't affect recipes that are only liquid inputs.
Oh, okay.
Due to like some reasons of the mechanics, because it needs physical items. So if you're making like from molten metal, well, no, it's if there's only liquid products. Because like if you're casting the metal like an iron plate out of molten iron, that can have quality. Because there's a physical item output, so the iron plate can have quality. Basically, fluids can't have quality because they're
tell that to the wine merchants.
It would all get mixed up or whatever. It'd be too difficult to manage.
Yeah, I guess this 100 milliliters of wine has real quality. How can I tell it apart from this 100 milliliters of wine?
Yeah, but then so. There are certain restrictions on that, but then that also leads to the slightly weird mechanic with the recycling, where one of the things you can cast out of it's a combination of molten iron and molten copper and plastic, which is a solid item, which therefore allows you to have quality. But you can take that and it casts into this thing called low density structure. That's kind of irrelevant. It's just a thing you're making. But like, because it's made of, well, the original way to make low density structure is copper, steel, and plastic. But if you're doing it in the volcanic planet in the special foundries that can handle the liquid metals, you're making it of liquid copper, liquid iron, and plastic.
Right.
So like the copper and steel basically take their liquid form in this recipe. But then when you recycle the low density structure that comes out, you get copper plates and steel back.
Oh, right.
Because it's using the original recipe for the recycling step.
Yeah.
So you're basically able to sort of instantly upgrade the quality of the copper plate by like an extra step because it's skipping making copper plate and then making it into the LDS and then recycling it.
Huh.
So you're getting this like, and also it's like a lot of copper at once because when you recycle, you get 25% of the stuff back. But the low density structure recipe normally takes 20 copper plates. So in molten form, it's like a lot of molten copper. But when you recycle the low density structure, you're guaranteed to get at least 5 copper plates out of the recycling recipe.
Right.
Whereas if it's a recipe that only uses one of something, it's a 25% chance of getting that one something back.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
So you are
okay, so it's not 25% chance for each of those, like...
Well, I mean, technically same thing, but...
Yeah, well, yeah. But to be guaranteed is...
Kind of. But yeah, so you're getting this copper and steel in this weird method of like... But then the trick is that it's also a way to like make quality plastic, because you can take the plastic that goes into the original recipe in the foundry, because it's only the plastic that counts to the quality. The liquid doesn't count.
Because it doesn't have quality.
Because it doesn't have quality. So if you use high-quality plastic, you can make high-quality low-density structure, but therefore you don't need high-quality copper and steel plates to make that high-quality low-density structure, because you only need the plastic in that recipe.
Right, yeah.
So it's this weird mechanic of like the molten metals make it able to bypass this quality step in a strange way. Although, unfortunately, quality plastic is awkward to make in itself because you need like quality coal, and the only way to get that is by mining it or recycle looping coal, which is like you
can't recycle loop plastic.
You can,
okay, and
then it doesn't disassemble back into coal. Basically, it stays as plastic, so you just get the 75% deletion thing.
Okay, yeah.
But because it's like the recycling is kind of the inverse of the normal way you run productivity in Factorio. Because normally when you're using productivity modules, you want to put that in like the final step, because then you're getting if you're getting like 50% extra of a product and you're getting 50% of the final extra of the final product, you're essentially getting 50% of all these intermediate steps beforehand. So you're getting a lot more. Whereas in quality, it's almost the opposite. Whereas if you like put quality modules in miners and get quality iron ore at the start, because you can then quality every step after that, so it stacks in the opposite direction. So like every additional crafting step you're going for, like from the iron ore, smelting it into a plate can have a quality step. Taking that plate and turning it into a gear can have a quality step. So you actually want the quality modules to be earlier in the chain rather than later in the chain, because that gives you more opportunities to keep doing quality steps each time. So yeah, I was messing with that, but I didn't really get back in because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I just need to maybe just go and actually finish the game of like, you know, finish the end goal.
Launch the rocket.
Yeah, essentially. Before I come back to do all this extra quality stuff, because I feel like I'm going to need to actually rebuild all these bases again. Like, I'm feeling that
you are not happy with this.
Well, yeah, and it's also because I feel like there's this weird sort of, like, I don't know, scaling wall between doing normal stuff and doing quality stuff. Because you need to waste like 75% of the resources, essentially. You just need to build 4 times as much stuff. And it's like, if you're not going to commit fully to that, it's kind of not worth doing like individual bits of it. I mean, I did do individual bits of it. Like I made on the recycling planet, I made that little thing that just makes quality modules. Quality. But like, that's all it does. Whereas on the volcanic planet where I was messing with it, I was just like, let's see if I can make just quality iron plates, because then I could use those to make everything, basically. But because you're losing 75% of the resources at that starting step, you're going to have to scale that up so much more. And I'm just like, I basically need to completely rebuild the volcanic planet to be able to scale it up that much. And also I feel like I'm just not... The other problem of that scaling wall is like, I feel like I don't have enough production of like buildings. Like the current setup I made to like basically convert one full belt's worth of iron plates into quality iron plates as efficiently as it can, is like, that's like 20 foundries or whatever, and I'm not making foundries that quickly. So I'm like, well, I'd have to scale up foundry production to have enough buildings to be able to build this quickly, or otherwise it will take forever. So I'd have to scale that up. Like that seems that seems like my actual blocker is that like I'm not making enough of the buildings.
So correct me here. So Factorio actually has a like it takes time to actually build things. Unlike like when we were watching plug for our next video, Dyson Sphere program, like where things just build instantly.
No, they still do build instantly. You're talking about buildings, but it's like because I'm making the buildings in a factory somewhere. Like, and when I need a new foundry.
Oh, so the actual process of putting them on the map is instant. You still actually need to build
the item,
some ethereal little thing. Yeah, some item.
Think of it like a flat packaged factory almost.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that's the same in Dyson program as well.
The McDonald's prefab, basically.
Yeah. But yeah, because I only have I have one factory on the volcanic planet that makes more foundries. And it's like, that's just not going to be quick enough to scale this up quickly. So I'd actually have to do that first. But then making those foundries quicker would then require scaling up all of its ingredients as well.
Yeah.
So really, I just have to tear down the whole thing and scale it all up at once to make this even slightly viable.
Do you have space to that?
Well, that is one of the other things that has sort of stopped me redoing the volcanic planet as much, because the volcanic planet has a lot of cliffs, but that's not a problem at the point I'm at, because you have to go to the volcanic planet to research the explosives that let you destroy cliffs. So once you get there, basically it's like, now you can remove these cliffs and on all the other planets. That's sort of one of the bonuses of going to the volcanic planet.
How does Factorio do that? Are they basically like Command and Conquer
Yes,
maps?
they're basically red alert cliffs. Same style. But then, obviously, the other problem is all this lava, which obviously will get in the way. But you can't landfill lava using normal landfill. You have to use this special landfill. And that special landfill is like, you only get that once you go to the final planet, the ice planet, which I have done. And I have got that research, so I could make it. But the trouble is, it's made of like components from all 4 of the different planets. So you have to get all of those components together to make it. And obviously, that makes it super expensive as well, like per tile or whatever.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, that's the only way to landfill lava, basically. And a few other of the other planets have terrain that is also unfillable apart from using that.
Maybe you've got to leave a certain amount of lava, though, because you want the lava.
Yes, because you need to extract the lava to make the liquid metals. But that's not really a problem. Also, one of the nice things, which is in... Actually, I don't know if this would be in base game Factorio when they did the 2.0 update, or whether this is only an expansion thing, but they changed it so you can basically unlandfill. Like, if you put landfill in water, you can actually just rip it back up later and it turns back into water, which is nice.
Yeah. That's what makes sense, I guess. If you
sort of
dug a hole, then the water would fill it.
It was nice. It was nice in the early game on, like, the swamp planet, because there's so much swamp everywhere. It was just like, I need to build belts across this for, like, I could just build a line of landfill, and then later when I move those belts, I can just pull all that landfill back up. And that also applies, I assume that also applies to the fancy landfill, the foundation that you need to cover lava. And it also applies to the ice platforms on the ice planet. The floating iceberg that your entire factory sits on. Yeah, and it is the problem of, like, when I'm looking at getting resources from multiple planets, that is also another thing that I don't feel like I'm nearly scaled up enough to even do, really. Like, when I'm thinking about, if you want to make, there's some things that just need resources from multiple planets, but, like, the cost of launching a rocket isn't that high any longer. It's, it's super low compared to the base game, but it's like, it's still not nothing, but that's just because I haven't scaled up enough. Like, on my home planet, I have got to, like, I can have 6 rocket silos just launching continuously, and I don't really care about that amount of resources because that base has been scaled up enough that is just a regular amount of resources. But on all the other planets, launching rockets continuously there, like even one rocket, is like, that's probably about as much as I can handle with that base.
Right, yeah.
So I can't afford to just be like, oh, I just need this stuff, so I'll just chuck it into a rocket and fire it up to a space platform and then ship it around. Have to be very picky about what I'm sending into space. But like in an ideal world, you actually do just want to, like, because making the metal stuff from the molten metals out of lava on the lava planet is almost free. Like, it uses a tiny amount of this secondary resource, but it's like proportionally a tiny amount.
But you're not worried because you've got the lava.
Yeah, because the lava's free and infinite. But like, because of that, ideally you'd want to make basically anything you can make out of just metal on the lava planet and then ship it in a rocket up to a space platform and then have the space platform take it to all the other planets.
Right.
And that wouldn't be too bad. Like, the cost of rockets on the lava planet, the bit that's not infinite there is like plastic, because plastic is made of coal and that's like a limited resource on that planet. So the rockets on that planet aren't free, they are cheaper.
But could you have a system where the plastic's coming in?
Kind of, but I feel like oil products are weirdly like the one thing that none of the planets is good at.
Oh, right.
Like,
you couldn't just have a plastic planet.
Yeah, like the scrap planet has the oil ocean, which is actually heavy oil, not like crude oil, which kind of limits what you can do with it. That's an infinite source of oil, but it then doesn't have the scrap planet doesn't have access to any other resources apart from scrap. So you can't like make plastic on the scrap planet and ship it out because the plastic recipe needs coal.
Yeah.
So you're like, are you going to ship in coal just to exploit the infinite oil and then launch it back up into space? It's just like, is that actually worth it? Really, the best planet for plastic and oil products is probably the starter planet, where you have actual just regular crude oil and regular coal and just make it the normal way.
Because it's like, I guess it doesn't have the DSP thing where the drones and your shipping is basically free.
Well, I mean, obviously the planet, like the drones moving stuff around or the belts moving stuff around, that's all free energy. Well, I mean, the bots use energy, but energy is essentially free. It's not that difficult. But like launching the rocket and then running the space platforms. I mean, the space platforms ideally are self-sufficient. Like, they pick up the asteroids as they're flying around and then process that into the rocket fuel that they need.
Oh, okay.
And the ammo for the turrets and all that stuff. So ideally the platforms are self-sufficient. It's just the cost of launching the rockets continuously. I mean, it's also, I don't know, it's something about the numbers, like the balance of how much stuff you can put into one rocket makes it feel more expensive. Maybe that's just some weird hang up with like how my old Factorio brain of like how expensive the rockets used to be, that I still think rockets are expensive.
Right.
Even though they're not actually really expensive any longer. But they are still not, I still consider them to be not super cheap.
Yeah.
But maybe it'd be fine. It's like, I feel like some of the numbers are just too low. I feel like they're too low, but they should have just like, the proportions should have been the same. They just should have made the numbers bigger. Like, make the rockets 4 times as expensive and make them carry 4 times as much stuff, and then it would just feel better in some way. Because like, if you're talking about shipping, so like, if you wanted to ship landfill somewhere, because the swamp planet where you need a shit ton of landfill because it's all goddamn water all over the place, the only raw resource on that planet that's not plants is stone, so you can make landfill on that planet. But the stone deposits on that planet are actually kind of tiny, so you're not going to be able to make that much. So I was like, well, if I wanted to make a huge factory that I have to landfill basically the entire terrain, I'm going to need more stone, right? So I'm like, I could import that via rocket. But if you make stone into landfill, it makes it slightly better compression to put into a rocket. But one rocket worth of landfill is still only like 25. Like, right. 25 tiles worth of landfill, and that's like nothing.
Yeah.
But that's just like, I'm sure that's balanced in terms of like the resource costs, but like, it just feels weird. Like, that's not even a full stack. A full stack of landfill is 100. It's like you're getting a quarter of a stack worth of landfill per rocket. And there's a lot of numbers that feel kind of bad like that, where it's just a feeling thing, where it's like if you're launching like ammunition for guns, you sometimes get like a half a stack of ammunition. It's just like that that feels just kind of weak for an entire rocket. But yeah, I don't know. That's just a feeling thing. I'm sure the numbers make sense on some level. And maybe that's my actual problem. That somewhere in my subconscious, I'm too locked into the old Factorio numbers.
Right, yeah.
That make it feel worse than it actually is. But yeah, that's been my problem with Factorio.
You need an accountant.
Oh God, bring back the spreadsheets again. And then really the only other thing that I played, mostly, I was trying to think of other stuff that I did play, but the main one, I guess, has been I've briefly gone back to Palworld.
Oh, right.
They had a fairly big update just before Christmas.
Yes,
Fae Break or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But that's really just a new chunk of land and a few new pals or whatever, and then a new raid boss or whatever.
I do find it weird that they're called pals. I don't know why. There's just something about that that's...
Well, I mean, it's very generic.
Yeah.
That's maybe the problem. But yeah, I went back into that and... Well, I went back in with a fresh save, obviously, so I haven't even seen this new whole continent or any of that late game stuff, but I mainly wanted to see, because there's been a couple of other major updates and then a bunch of smaller ones over the year, so I hadn't played since, like, January or whatever. Well, maybe slightly later than that, but almost since it came out. But, like, I wanted to go back and see how different it was in the progression, and it is actually kind of... The thing about it is, like, it's actually better in terms of, like, functionality. Like, they have actually been making it work better, which is the thing I was always worried about with that. It's like, it's fine to keep adding more content, which is, like, more powers and more land to explore or whatever, but, like, the actual functionality of, like, building the bases and stuff has actually improved. It's like, oh, good, they are actually working on the bit that's, like, less fun to work on, I suspect.
Right, yeah.
Not just new content. There was another game that I was playing recently where I had that same thought, where it's just like, I'm sure they like working on new content, but it would be nice if they went back and worked on, making the game function better.
I heard that, speaking of making the game function better, but not better, but like, I heard Palworld have capitulated on but maybe not here, but in some countries, like the whole Pokemon coming out of a ball that you throw.
Yes, they have kind of. That's one of the changes that was actually relatively recent before this big update, and it does apply here. But, like, it's weird because, like, they haven't said outright, and therefore everyone's just speculating of why this change was made.
Well, yeah, because the lawsuit between Nintendo
probably
and
prevents
them
them from saying it, yes.
Yeah.
But, like... what they've changed, I feel like, doesn't escape the pattern that they're trying to escape. Because what they've done, so the way it used to work is like Pokemon, where you throw the ball, catch the thing, and then you throw the ball and the thing comes out. And that was what the pattern was, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
And so what they've changed is that now when you call the pal out, you don't throw the ball out, it just appears next to you. Mm. And it's like, I feel like that's not distinct enough to make that to escape the pattern. You've only escaped half that pattern, and even then...
Oh, I see what you mean, so the capturing is still...
The capture's still throwing a ball at a thing.
Yeah, that's almost the more iconic part.
Yeah, that's what I would have said.
But then the patent is kind of a weird way of protecting the Pokeball, right? Which is in itself like a trademarkable symbol.
Yes.
And it's a whole...
But I don't think that's what that patent is trying to protect. It is trying to protect the mechanic. Like, presumably the Pokeballs are fully on copyright.
I mean, that's what the patent has to do, right? A patent has to be mechanical in terms of game design. But, like, yeah, and the Pokeball itself is probably, yeah, you're right, copyrighted or trademarked in some way. Or something of that ilk. But then it's all connected, right? Well, that's why they do that.
I mean, that's the trouble with that patent, is that they're just like, as everyone immediately pointed out, where it's just like, there are so many games where you throw a thing in third person, and like, does that apply? Does that apply to throwing a grenade? Because that's essentially a throwing mechanic in third person.
But an explosion comes out?
An explosion comes out, yeah, I guess.
I mean, unless your explosion has like eyes, and then you
Well,
have
it's Final Fantasy, it's a bomb.
yeah.
But just like, that's why that pattern was, everyone started. But then, because that pattern is the two halves of like throw thing, capture thing, and then throw the ball and the thing reappears, it's like maybe just changing half of it is enough to escape that pattern. Maybe because the pattern has to be that specific.
I see what you mean. You haven't stolen the whole thing. You've only taken that part.
It's like if the pattern is specific in that way, do you escape the pattern by only ripping off half of it?
Yeah, I mean, what happens if like the thing instead was? I'm sure there's games where like they sort of come out of you when you summon things, right? Like a spark comes out of your very being and it materializes into.
Well,
something.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there's plenty of other games that use the exact Pokemon systems that haven't been sued, but that's a whole different problem.
I mean, maybe Palworld are working on something fancy, like some fancier animation, and this is a stopgap.
Well, that was the other part of the people have been theorizing. Was just like they just done this quickly to deal with it in the present, and then they're going to make it different in the future. Because
maybe they'll have some sort of like hollow bag, like from Beyond Good and Evil, right? That just materializes the Pokemon out of your hip.
Well, I mean, that might as well be the same animation as it is currently, where they just appear next to you.
Kind of, but you can make it sort of like coming out of you. You can do something slightly fancier.
I mean, the actual problem with it currently is that it kind of affects the gameplay. Like, being able to throw the PAL out ahead of you was actually important mechanically.
Yeah.
Because you could use it to aggro enemies without putting yourself in danger.
Unless they do some stupid thing where, like, you literally... Like the PAL materializes in your hands,
and you throw it,
and you huff it.
I mean, they already have the system for chucking them. Like you can pick them up in the base and throw them around.
I mean, yeah, that sounds like the solution. Surely.
But I mean, then the problem is like, how specific do you need to get into this pattern? Because like, could you just make it so that when you throw them out, it's essentially just a laser pointer and they just appear where you're pointing? Like, is that bad for the pattern?
Is that the equivalent of throwing, but not actually with a throw animation?
Yeah, with not a ball appearing in the air or anything. They just teleport to where you're looking or something. Does that still run up against this pattern? That's why this speculation about whether this is a pattern thing is so weird, because it's just like, there seems like there could have been solutions that would have let them still allow you to throw the power out without the throwing if that's all they're trying to avoid.
Well, sure, they just have to do a Titanfall, right?
Yeah, just orbital drop them. Totally fine.
That would be so cool.
Or just like, it would be a weird animation, but just like have it so that your character like throws the ball directly down into the ground and then it like tunnels and then pops up. Does that count against the pattern?
Man, I should have mentioned Titanfall.
No,
there is something so damn cool about Titanfall.
Yeah. But yeah, so I went back in and played that some more, and yeah, the stuff that they have fixed in like how the bases work and stuff is actually kind of nice for it to just function better. Admittedly, it is still a bit of a to use our ancient in-joke, it's a bit of a temporal skank situation. Where it's just like, sometimes if the power can't pathfind to where it needs to be, it just does its animation wherever it's standing and it just works.
Okay.
So like, that's slightly lazy, but I mean, I guess it's for functionality of making your base just work, it's nice.
Yeah, that's quite funny. So if you had like a crowd that couldn't get to exactly where they need to be, eventually they all just sort of dance in place.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that like an optimization technique? If you can make it so your powers can't actually get to where they
so
get
they never have to pathfind. Yeah, probably.
If you put like enough of them in like battery chickens or whatever, and just squeeze them in there, they then just like they're effectively teleporting to where they need to be.
I think the one thing that probably wouldn't work, well, from what I've seen, I think that maybe doesn't work for like when they need to eat food.
Oh, okay. They actually do need to go to the food.
Yeah, it seems like it. But yeah.
You just need to find a pal that doesn't eat.
Unfortunately, I think they all do. Oh. You do have ones that don't sleep, so you can have night workers, essentially.
It's a ghost pals eat?
Yeah, they all do.
Can't just find a whole slew of Anons.
I mean, technically, I don't think there are ghost pals. There's a thing that looks like it might be a ghost, but they're all dark type. There's no ghost type in Palworld.
Hey, buddy.
But yeah, I ran around and Well, and I guess some of the other things they've changed are like,
I'd like there to be like a Cockney version of this game, like called Giza Planet or something. Like,
it sounds like something that probably already existed in some parody somewhere.
It'd be a great mod.
Some of the other
They're all
things,
just wearing like Burberry.
yeah, clearly, or a bunch of
flat caps,
bells and stuff, or whatever those dudes wear.
Or like Morris dancers.
No, what is the? Oh no, it's pearls, isn't it? That's the one I'm thinking of.
Oh.
Yeah, the stupid pearl. That's a Cockney thing, right?
Is it?
I think so. Anyway, yeah, the other thing they've changed in like in the way the bases work is they've added things you can build in your base that allow you to like grind certain resources that you couldn't before. Like, I mean, obviously there's the obvious ones like ore. Because you used to be able to build a building that lets you basically grind for wood and grind for stone in a like single location in your base. But now they've extended that to like ore for metal and I believe sulfur as well.
Oh, right. So you had to go out and do that before.
Yeah. Or you had to build a base that encompassed the naturally spawning ore rocks and then harvest them that way.
Oh.
Rather than just being able to build it wherever. So that's sort of nice. And then there's also a new building for basically grinding ancient tech parts, which used to be another thing that you had to do. You had to like run through the dungeons or fight the like boss powers in order to get the ancient tech parts. And that was like the only real way to do it. So that was something you always had to do. But the problem with that was that you used the ancient tech parts to make like the upgraded versions of, well, basically everything. If you had a blueprint for like the uncommon or rare version of a gun or whatever, those use ancient tech parts, but then they also have a durability. So whenever you repair them, it also uses ancient tech parts. Right, yeah. So that really sucked. But now you have this building where you can basically send your pals out to do a dungeon, sort of faked to send them out to do a dungeon, and then that generates ancient tech parts automatically.
Is that so? Like, presumably, is that on the tech tree? So you have to start the process yourself. So you have to go through a few things yourself. And
I mean, it's not super high up the tech tree, but yeah. Well, and also
because it seems weird to me, like when some of these like quality of life changes, where it's like, oh, actually, you've removed a gameplay requirement here.
I mean, that building does. When you send the powers out to do the mission, it takes up to 100 powers. So I guess you do kind of need to have caught quite a few to make that very efficient. And it's like rated based on their like strength or whatever. So if you have more high leveled ones, it makes it work faster. But the actual problem with that is that, well, because I said that building was like a way to grind the ancient tech parts, like how you can grind wood and stone or whatever, like with those buildings. But it's not quite, because you actually have to manually start the process on that building. Like you have to send the power squad out on the expedition every potentially quarter of an hour. And that's actually one of the problems that I've been having with it, is that there's too many things that are on timers that are too short. Whereas like, if I have to send an expedition out every 15 minutes and eggs take 5 minutes to hatch, and if I'm breeding more eggs, those take like 10 minutes for a new egg to appear. It's just like all these timers that are just slightly too short that makes you just like hang around in your base too much. You're just like, I'll just wait 1 more minute for that timer to finish. Oh, no, then there's this timer that's going to finish. I'll just wait a minute for that to finish. But then you're just starting new timers all the time.
It's a little bit like, well, I found out it's a little bit like the forager problem or any game like that, really, where you end up sort of spending all your like a whole bunch of time in your base.
In forager, that's the point of the game, though. You're not, whereas in Palworld, you're meant to go out into the world and like capture new pals and explore and stuff.
Sure.
But you can't be running around out in the world for an hour when all your stuff in your base is finished and needs resetting. So like I just feel like all those timers in the base need to be like Factorio, multiply everything by 4 and it would just work better.
Yes, you can give you some time.
Or I guess,
or at least have ways of making them so they can
self-restart. I mean, that's dangerous, because then you're really going into the full automation grinding where you never have to interact with it.
Or maybe you can swap the style a little bit to be like, I want twice the produce, but set this timer to be twice as long as well.
But then you might as well not even have that be a setting and just make it twice as long.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah,
I suppose it depends what you're after at the time. It's like, well, I don't want all that material for this upgrade.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like that is just one of those weird balance problems where it's just like you need to be able to just leave. You need to be able to be inefficient, which I'm not capable of. Too much efficiency.
Yeah, it would bother me too.
And yeah, then there's a few other like little quality of life things, like you can set what chests are allowed to store in them.
Oh, okay.
Which sort of helps, but doesn't entirely fully help because at a certain point you still need like the chest that can store everything in case something of that nature turns up. But then you need to go manually sort that out. And also, it's sorting. The chests are limited by category rather than by like specific items or anything, right. Which is kind of not actually that helpful. Where it's just like, oh, I can have this chest store PAL ingredients, which is basically every type of drop that comes off an enemy, off a PAL when you kill it. And that's like, that includes a lot of different things that are used for different purposes and might be stored in different parts of your base even, depending on where they're produced.
And there's no way of like selecting a bunch of chests, say, to be like, just give me the conglomerated lump of this.
No. And
this pile of chests I've built.
And then if you overflow... Well, actually, I think it might be quite late in the tech tree, but I think I remember reading that there is like a sort of a building you can make that gives you like global access to all of your chests, maybe, which would be nice, because then you wouldn't have to keep running around all the time.
Well, yeah, especially if it collates the numbers, at least.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then that's still a problem.
Well, I mean, even just having it be like a tabbed window where you can just tab for all the chests in your base would be sort of useful. Especially if you could pull stuff out and put stuff in remotely, essentially.
Yeah, right.
Because then you could manually reorganize stuff without having to walk between them all. Because everything has a weight in that game, over encumbered.
Right.
It's very awkward if you ever need to like move the box that contains like all of your stone and wood. Because then you're like, well, you can carry an infinite amount of stuff. You're just going to move incredibly slowly. So it's like, if I want to move this chest 20 feet away, it's going to take like a minute for me to walk very slowly all the way over there.
Can't get a big pallet at it.
That was actually quite an early patch, actually, after the game's release, where they made it so you could move at all. Because it used to be when you got overcome, you just become stationary.
Oh.
Which really sucked.
That's pretty funny. You can't just get one of the bigger pals to...
No. I mean, you can ride certain pals and that'll increase your weight limit, which sort of helps. Actually, I don't know if you over-encumber when you're riding a pal, whether that also makes you move super slow. I assume it does.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, I played some amount of that again, and maybe we'll run into another multiplayer session of that also, potentially. But yeah, that's still substantially the same, just works a little bit better.
Okay.
And with more content. They are still updating it.
And with guns.
More guns. Actually, there are more guns since I last played. Now you can just straight up get an AK. Okay.
The gun part just has always struck me as the weirdest thing about Palworld. But more so, not that there is some sort of weaponry, but more so that they are just straight up regular ass guns. I think,
I guess.
Not like weird fantasy guns in some way.
I mean, there are a few more weird weapons, but yeah, they are just regular ass guns.
That is the weirdest. I don't know what it is. Like is that? It's like Ni no Kuni, right? Where that guy just has a gun in Ni no Kuni 2.
That's also a pretty weird one.
It just strikes me as there should be like some sort of disconnect, or that there should be a disconnect. Not that you should bring. It's too real, man.
I mean, obviously, the weird. Why it gets super weird in Palworld is when the pals use the guns. Like, it'd be fine if just the humans were the ones using the guns, but then when you got the pals using the guns as well, it's like, this is actually weird.
It is quite odd.
And that was more or less all I played, apart from some Rocket League. The new season has only just started, and I've already got the champion rewards for this season because I finally got out of Lemon Town for a minute.
Hey.
So good. I don't have to worry about that for the whole rest of the season again.
Done.
Not that I'm worried about it at all, but, it's nice to be able to say that I did it.
I'm somewhat amazed you've stuck with Rocket League. I mean, I know for me it was the time commitment that was what drove me away. Otherwise, I'd probably still be in, but...
Well, I mean, you were only worried about the time commitment of the Rocket Pass, though.
Yeah.
Like, the actual time commitment of playing Rocket League is basically nothing.
It's pretty low, yeah, but, I was on the pass. And as soon as you're in on that, it's like, it's actually it's an effort to get through it, and then get enough to...
Continue the pass.
Yeah.
But, you could just not care about that, in theory. But unfortunately, they've got you with the psychological trap.
Yeah, they have. Also, I must be terrible at that now, because it has been maybe a couple years now.
Maybe it's just something you remember quite quickly.
Maybe. I mean, I was never that good, so there's that.
Sure.
You're supposed to not say sure.
I mean, I think probably the actual problem would be not your skills. It'd be like recognizing all the new stuff that the general skills of the community come up.
Right, the new tech.
Yeah, the new tech. And see how all that works. I mean, I'm still amazed how often people, even at like champion level, get beaten by really obvious things, which are like, this is old new tech at this point. How have you not learned how to deal with these things?
Well, that's surely how the meta works, right? In games, people learn certain techniques based on what people are doing at the time, and
yeah, but I think when you're talking about Rocket League, like, it has long plateaus between short spikes of change. Like, the most recent stuff has been around for several years at this point. And you can say this for every time in Rocket League, but every time you feel like this is just it. We're not going to invent anything new any longer. But then they somehow do.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can't possibly think what they could be doing now.
Yes. I mean, as I've said repeatedly, it doesn't... in my case, it doesn't really matter because I don't do any of that new stuff, and I'm still functionally as good as the people at this champion level, which I always find funny. It's just funny internally, not funny when I'm watching other people be bad at this level. It's like, come on, I'm real bad at this, and I'm still as good as you are. Be better.
Yeah. You're the one that's trying. You'll do all these air juggles.
Yeah, you're the one who's trying to dribble every ball and just getting shit on for it. I never dribble, and I'm totally fine.
Yeah, kick the ball.
Man, that is still my number one hang up about people's skills in Rocket League. Is just fucking shoot sometimes.
Yeah.
Don't try and dribble every goddamn thing. The amount of goals I still score from the entire other end of the pitch because I just shoot, and it's just oh, no one was there.
The oddity of dribbles and air dribbles are one of the things I kind of wish wasn't in the game or wasn't possible. The physics just wouldn't allow it. Because it doesn't feel like the physics should allow it anyway, right? When you see it happen and you see them doing it, it's what?
Well, yeah. It's because it feels like that ball is really light. That's if it was heavier, it feels like it would be easier to dribble, and it probably would be. But because it's so light, it's on that right on the verge of it looking too weird. Or it's almost just floating on top of you.
Because your car isn't super affected by the ball.
Yeah,
and that's what's weird about it.
But yeah, the number of times that I still see people completely cock up things that should be well known at this point. It's I appreciate that you have to keep practicing to be able to learn these skills, but.
Because that was always my problem. I knew what was coming. I just couldn't execute.
Sure. Number of times I see people drive up the back wall and then just miss because it's why did you not just stay on the floor and jump? Because they drive on the back wall and then they're like, I'm going to dive across goal to make this save, and then they fuck it up because that's actually really difficult to aim. Yeah, because you're fighting against gravity sideways, turning on the wall.
I only ever did that as an emergency.
Yeah.
I'm coming back. I'm miles away, and I can see trouble coming. I'm just going to fly across on the vain hope I'll get in the way.
And I guess the other number one thing that always pisses me off is people who don't attack the ball enough, where it's just they'll start driving out towards the enemy as they're starting to push out, and then they'll like turn away. Because this is a thing that people have been taught somewhere in the history of Rocket League. It's like called shadow defending, basically, where you drive with the opponents as they're bringing the ball in, and then like jump across to intercept.
Oh, right. You try and stay right in front of them.
Kind of. Like you're moving with them at the same speed, so as soon as they shoot, you're jumping, because then your momentum is in the forward direction, which allows you to catch up to the ball better and that sort of stuff. So it's like it's a very old technique at this point, and people still do it all the time. But the number of times where you'll see people start driving out, even boosting or whatever, and then stop and do a 180 to go into like shadow defense mode, it's just like just jump at the ball while you've got all that forward momentum.
While you're in that way,
especially if the reason I'm seeing this is because I'm already back and like I'm already covering. The whole point of me being there to cover is so that you can
have
dive at it and have a go.
Have a go, yeah. I mean, this is getting a bit technical, but is the idea of creating an awkward 50 style bounce in Rocket League, like, is that actually worse than a shadow defense? Because I guess a shadow defense is more predictable, but the risk is you're hitting it towards your goal, potentially. And
also, at least in a 50, there's like a 50% chance rather than potentially you just completely miss.
Sure.
But I mean,
that can happen too.
Sure. But I think that's also maybe another thing that people have never properly learned in Rocket League is what to do with like 50 when you're hitting a ball with another person. That's another thing that I mysteriously got good at.
Yeah, I mean, I never got that. Like, it just always... And that was what drove kippers away from the game. Like, it was because the predictability of that seemed... I could never quite figure out what it wanted.
Yeah.
Like, because it just always seemed to go against me. And Kipper suffered from that way worse than I did. Like, it just would never go in the direction. You'd both seemingly hit the ball at very similar times, and somehow it would go behind you and not them, and that would happen more often than not.
Yeah.
And figuring out what it wanted from that scenario, just, I don't know, just seems...
I mean, that's the thing about, like, all the like skills in quotes that I have are like things that are impossible to teach, basically. Like, I couldn't tell someone how to win a 50 like that.
Yeah.
It's just like, because I've done it so much, I know how, like, when to flip and what direction to flip to just block things like that more effectively. But like, that's not a thing you can go into a training mode and learn. Also, because I guess there's no way you could actually set that up in a training mode.
I guess not.
But
yeah, that was one of the more frustrating parts of Rocket League, was just that scenario. I've tried a bunch of stuff. Like, I at one point, I think I saw people like intentionally getting a tiny bit of height and then flipping upside down, like doing a roll, so they were upside down when they hit it.
Yeah, but people will try and do that, but I'm not sure that's super useful.
No, I didn't find
it takes too long. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't find that very effective.
And again, it's like another situation where it's like a totally unknowable thing. It's just like, maybe my choice of car does help. As we speculated about when I was saying about, the F1, the flat F1 car.
You've gone flat, have you?
Relatively flat. I don't think it's as flat as the super flat cars, but I think, like, we were speculating before on the podcast about whether that was why I win kickoff a lot. It's
right.
Like, because everyone else uses Octane, the default hitbox.
Yeah.
It's just like, is it just because I'm using this weird car that I'm slightly more effective in that one way?
Or are you just quite good at doing because, if people are doing like the really quick kickoff, right, and getting that roll right, then if you're just positioning yourself right, then you're going to win that more often, not by just reflecting their kick.
Well, yeah, kind of. Like, when I get up to the sort of peak of where my rank levels out, like, when you see people who can do the really fast kickoff, they will still beat me, just to the ball.
Yeah.
It's not to do with, like, the 50 at that point. It's just that they are literally getting there quicker than I can get there.
Yeah.
But below that,
as long as you know they're doing that, then you can sort of position a little bit better.
Well, yeah, kind of. Anyway, that's Rocket League. That was more or less all I played. There's been a couple of other random bits and pieces, but not anything much. It's been a quiet time for my games. What have you played? Possibly even less than that.
Yeah, not a huge amount. As I said, it's been nothing period for me a little bit. Been Balatroing. Got a couple more deck wins under my belt. So I'm progressing through that. I found it took me a while. I thought the yellow deck in particular was going to be an easy one because the yellow deck doesn't give you extra hands. It's the third deck basically in the list, and instead of like the red and blues before, instead of getting an extra hand or an extra discard per round, you just start with money.
Right.
Like that's its trick. Like start with $10, and it's like, well, you can get up and running quite quick with that because you can just buy a bunch of jokers right at the first, or buy a couple jokers right at the first shop, making the early game dead easy to get through. Or you could just have a little bit of what's the word? Interest. Like if you don't spend it, right?
Right. Save it up.
Yeah, you can actually use the interest to your advantage, and so I could become. I had some pretty good money machines at my fingertips during those runs, but it took me a while to actually get a winning run out of that deck for some reason. I don't know why. It should have been easy, right? Like make the money, get it spec'd out the right way. And then weirdly, when I tried the green deck, which I forget its bonus. But it's that was a green deck. I think has no interest possibility at all, but you get money based on the amount of hands and discards you don't use in rounds. So you basically cash out the better if you can finish rounds quicker. That took me a while just to get going, like just to get a set actually started. Like I would fail out on the early blinds.
I guess that makes sense because if the idea is that you've got to cash in not doing something, then you're just going to have to get lucky of not doing that once to be able to start rolling that. Yeah, exactly.
But then once I got rolling, I ended up getting a pretty good system going. There was the rare occasion I went on a different. Like I've got a regular now. Is the thing I've got a strategy, and that's to go. Which is pretty much the one I think I talked about before, which is straights seem powerful. Like the multiplier benefits are quite good, and they level up quite well.
Right.
So if you're leveling up your straights, it's quite. And there's as I said, there's a few jokers in there that are actually just like make straights really potent. But I went off on a different tangent and did a 2-pair deck, and because 2 pairs are obviously way more likely to come up, so you can actually play hands better. But that means you really do have to double down on making that 2-pair potent. So I didn't really have any power anywhere else in my deck. It just has to be. I have to play a 2-pair or nothing. And I had 2 pairs, and I also had the walkie-talkie joker, which is makes 10s and 4s. 10-4, good buddy. Quite potent as well. And that the version of that joker I had was a special edition, so that added to the potency. Anyway, it ended up being one of my best decks ever. Basically, it just was absolutely minced through the first 8 to the win point, and then got some of my best hands. My best scoring rounds ever in the subsequent endless mode stuff.
Right.
Boy, endless mode ramps up fast, though. By the time you get to that point, it's going to the point where if you go look up what the anti-levels are, what the targets are, you're supposed to be reaching. I forget what it is. It's like $100,000 or a couple $100,000 by the time you reach anti-8, and as your score target. By the time you reach anti-16, you have to be doing stuff in scientific notation.
Yeah.
It's nuts. I have no idea how you ramp it up that fast past that point. I've got to about 10 or 11 out of the 16 listed, but I have absolutely no idea how you can ramp the deck up faster than that.
Does it still have stuff that you're going to unlock?
I mean, I've got plenty of jokers I've never seen. Plenty of jokers that
is it just that
behind.
You haven't seen them because of random or because there's an unlock?
There is an unlock system,
right.
Yeah. So you have to meet certain targets, or I don't know.
But then they also backport presumably to the older decks, so you can use them in these older challenges, basically.
Correct. It's a little, it's classic roguelike mechanics. It's like when you unlock something, you're not unlocking it for your permanent use. You're unlocking the possibility that it turns up.
Yeah.
But But I wouldn't necessarily say that the Jokers that I've been unlocking are better, right? They're probably more circumstantial and have like more specific bonuses, more specific use cases. But,
and do you feel like it's going to have the other roguelike problem of like, is the randomness going to get too clogged up with stuff that you don't want, or is there a way to filter it out?
I mean, it might. I currently haven't discovered a filter. The more you unlock, the more random it becomes. Like that, that. Especially if I was gunning for like my straight deck, I suppose, and the Jokers I know that are good for that, like, don't come up.
Yeah,
because there's more polluting it. I think that's a very real possibility. But maybe that's just part of the game's charm. Maybe your adaptation to those scenarios is the thing.
Well, yes. I mean, I guess if that's the way it's designed, the idea is to not just only have a straight deck, to have several different theories that will work.
I don't feel like I've managed to like perfect a deck by the time I've lost, right? I've never feel like, especially like when in the manipulation of how your actual, not just the Jokers and what you're doing with those, but what the actual content of your deck is.
Right.
Like, you know, those base 52 cards, and then how you mess with that to be like, oh, I don't want 2s and 3s. Get out of here. It's like there are ways to do it, but like your ability to do that is also a bit randomized, right? Because you need to, the tarot cards you might need to achieve something like that to like convert everything so it's only one suit, for instance. You have to wait for those to appear in the shop, and even when they do appear in the shop, like there's a random chance of you getting that thing from the thing you just bought, like a random on top of a random, in order to try and coerce your standard cards in the way that you might want. I feel like I've got, like, by the end of a run, I've got nowhere near what I was actually trying to do, right, with those.
Right.
I've helped it along the way, but never truly achieved. Perfection is hard, and maybe that's that seems entirely intentional.
Sure.
I still enjoy that thing quite a bit. I was playing a lot of it silent though, like when I was playing it.
You're
like,
done with the music.
Yeah. There was one period of time during the limbo where it's just like it seemed socially acceptable for me to get the deck out,
right,
and use it portably. So I was playing Balatro on that. That seemed like an appropriate period of time. So I did that for a little bit. Yeah, it's all right. Well, in other Steam Deck stuff I was doing, I did get around to trying Aero 1 on it after I was surprised. Like, I think I mentioned last podcast how surprised I was at how the performance of Aero 2 on the Steam Deck was subpar, which is a shame because I do quite like that game. But yeah, I tried Aero 1 on the deck and it runs just fine. It's like, okay, I say just fine performance-wise. There are a few hoops to jump through in Steam Deck land to get it to render correctly.
Okay.
Like it seemingly letterboxed the whole thing weirdly. Like even if I told it to run at 1920 by 1080, like it would still letterbox the whole image and thus look squished. Like it actually looked squished as well.
So it was just like running at a resolution that wasn't the resolution that the deck was running at.
Well, no, because it was running through. Oh, sorry, I was running docked at the time, so it was outputting to the TV.
Right.
So running it at 1080p should have been absolutely fine. It should have filled the screen, but it didn't. It would run letterboxed.
But if you undocked it at that point, would it be the wrong resolution on the screen?
I didn't try. Yeah, maybe there was some consideration in the game there, but it shouldn't have mattered anyway, because I always set things up to run what the deck calls native mode. So it's whatever resolution your system is running at when you launch the game is the maximum resolution that game is allowed to run at.
And presumably that game, being as it's an old one, wouldn't have had any weird Steam Deck specific setting where it was trying to do something.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not. It was 2019, I think, Aero 1. So, I mean, they might have added Steam Deck support later. I think it's marked as officially, I think it's been marked as playable, not. But annoying. I think the was it the Proton DB rating is incorrect because it marks it as platinum, which usually means no problems at all, and it's like no, there's a problem. Like I had to. It could be fixed though. There is a way to fix it, and that does mean getting quite technical and creating what's called a wine prefix. So you can using Proton tricks in desktop mode, you can set up basically a wine profile to be like. And the trick for me was make it run in an emulated virtual desktop at this specific resolution, and then it launches fine, and then it's okay. So I'm basically forcing it to be like, you have your own desktop and you're running at 1080, and you're go for it, and then it's happy, and then it runs beautifully, and it's a great time. So it's like, but actually it did remind me. It's like, okay, yeah, Aero 2 is visually doing some slightly prettier than Aero 1, right? Like there's way more lighting effects coming off those sparks,
right,
and stuff like that than there is in the first game. But also, like, just generally the speed your craft moves in Aero 1 is way faster. Like the ribbon, like it's not like the what you're having to do is particularly more rapid, I suppose, but like just the speed of which you're scrolling through the environment. It's like turning up the speed the arrows come down the screen at you in like Stepmania or DDR.
Right.
Like,
but is it because it's the shape of the rail that you're looking at? Is it just that it's more like more changes of direction spaced in the same length, basically? Like, is it faster because it needs? Well,
you need to be able to see it.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I've found a compelling reason in either game for the change. Thus far, admittedly, I've not played much of the advanced ribbons in Aero 2, and I don't think that Aero 1 had a difference in ribbon between the difficulty levels. The difficulty levels generally added more things to shoot at and more things shooting at you.
Off the rail stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and the shooting mechanics in between the two games are quite different, actually, as it turns out. There's more of a, you use the right stick, and lock-ons were automatic in the first game, and I'd forgotten that, like, as opposed to the hold and release pattern that you have in Aero 2.
Right.
And I'm really not sure which I prefer, like, that having played the two of them back to back. It's like they are different beasts, and I don't, even though the change seems quite subtle on the face of it, it's like they do feel different to play. It's interesting. I still like them, but yeah, it'd be nice if it ran a bit better on the deck. It's fine if you've got a PC, go nuts. So there's that. What else have I been doing? I'm still playing Starlink. I don't really have much to say about that, other than I discovered a few more new activities to do.
Okay,
like I can now go after bounties. That's a thing I can do now, and I did some racing, which was a bit weak. But hey, there's some.
We like the racing.
Yeah,
fly through some rings.
Well, no, it's unlike it's not that bad. It's like because it's doing it in hover tank mode, right? Like,
okay.
So it's like there's actual track racing, but I won all of them first time, so that was a bit of a not too much of a problem. And now I've unlocked another quest that means like, oh, you should go win some races to attract this person's attention. I'm like, well, I've just won them all. Oh. Do you mean I'm going to have to do them again?
Do the ship parts actually affect your ground speed?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if the racing part, like there are upgrades for the ship that do affect your speed in like normal scenarios, but what I don't know is whether they affect the racing speed,
right,
or any of that. So I did pick a frame anyway that had pretty good speed and handling. I picked one of my loadouts that was that way inclined.
Does that make it easier?
Yeah, it would make it easier. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, still doing that. I'm on the planet at the moment where there's the next set of Starfox content to do. So looking forward to hearing some bants. But in the meantime, kind of news, I suppose.
Okay.
Starship was released. And you'll be forgiven for not knowing what the hell I'm talking about. Starship is the Starfox 64 recompilation project.
Right.
So taking the N64 version of Starfox and doing what they did with Majora's Mask, and making it so you can take that ROM and recompile it native for Windows. And with a little bit of tinkering, you can totally get that running on Steam Deck. So that's what I did. And I've been playing Starfox 64 in 4K, 60 frames per second. and it's glorious. Like, it's not got any like graphics enhancements or anything other than that. Like,
right, no high-res textures or anything.
No, there's no, like, I don't know. Presumably, there may be mod support for that kind of stuff coming. I don't really like. It's not, but that's not the aim of the project. The project is just to make it so it runs natively. And I think there are a couple of bug fixes that they've put into the mix as well, like minor things, like the camera in this particular scene is going to position itself correctly now,
right?
And I think there's a widescreen hack at play as well, so it can do 16:9 and look fine. I think I think if you do the training exercise, I think the UI element for how many rings you've flown through in a row is slightly incorrectly placed, but they're generally minor. And there's a couple of little lighting issues here and there that don't seem 100% right to my eye, but maybe they were always there and you just didn't notice. I mean, you can go into the settings if you want and turn it back to N64 style, right? Run it at 240p if you want. Run it at 30 FPS if you want. You can do all of that. It's a real good way to play that game, though. I had good fun. The only thing that you have to do is you have to use the American ROM, right, to do it. It's only designed for the US version of the game,
right?
And I think I had this same problem when I played Starfox 64 3D on the 3DS. That I'm not used to the fact that that's a little bit faster than the EU copy used to run.
Right.
And it is a game speed thing. The whole game runs a bit quicker, not just a frame rate thing.
It would have been like 25 frames originally, right?
Yes.
For us.
Yeah. So while it doesn't seem like a lot, to me that feels noticeable. And so I'm noticeably less good at this than I used to. Well, that could just be time as well. I used to be all right at Starfox, at Lilac Wars back in the day, but yeah, I'm clearly not so good at it now. But this is a very good way to play that game, and it's quite smart. Like, I haven't had to do too much tinkering with it. Like, it knows that I'm playing with a PS4 pad. And just goes, oh, cool, no, I'll set up some mappings for that. It's a little less than ideal because the C stick is mapped to the R stick. And It's not a C stick, remember, on the N64? They're buttons.
Yeah.
So, like, pulling off things like the somersault and the U-turn are a little finicky because you've got to do, the brake is on, like, C down. So you've got to pull down on the right stick and pull down on the... That's not so bad, but the somersault's on C left. Or, sorry, boosters on C left. So to do a somersault, you're pulling down and C left, which doesn't feel hugely... And you've got to do that in time, otherwise it doesn't activate.
Right.
So that doesn't feel hugely great, but presumably using... you can remap it, and either using Starship's interface or just remap it in Steam on your deck. That might be easier. Use the Steam controller settings. It's real cool. It's worth checking out. Oh, we'll not tell you how to get hold of that ROM.
Obviously.
You're supposed to dump it yourself. Yeah. Was there anything else? Oh, I mean, there was something else. Like, I played through Space Jam. Well, I forget exactly what it's called. It's like A New Dawn, whatever the latest one was called, or something.
A new movie, a new
era, whatever the new one was called. They put a beat 'em up out to go alongside that game.
No Shaq Fu.
It
almost is.
I mean, it was made by Digital Eclipse, right? Drew Scanlon's company. This is a Drew Scanlon joint, and it's it's a pretty rudimentary beat 'em up. It plays fine, I guess. It looks fine. I finished it on my first try with no continues in half an hour. It does unlock a hard mode and a boss rush mode once I've done that. So maybe I'll go back to it for another half an hour just to get some more Chivos. I got like 400 out of 1,000 in like half an hour. It's pretty good. It's serviceable, and I think 3 people can play it once if you want. I'm not saying you should. Like, the thing that sort of makes it mildly interesting is the fact that there is a basketball.
Right.
And it's kind of like, the pick-up weapons that you would have in a normal one, except you pick it up and then the next attack you do will throw the basketball in front of you. But you can charge that up if you want. So you can have a charged, throw it at something attack, or pound the ground and it creates a little AoE effect. If you charge it up and jump and then throw it. And if you lose the basketball, like it bounces off screen or something, a little Tweety bird thing will bring it back and put it in the screen, and you can summon it to you. And if you're playing co-op, you can even apparently pass the basketball between players.
Right.
I'm not really 100% sure why you would do that.
Well, could it be like a linear attack? Like it kills everything that's in between you, basically? Or attacks everything that's in between you?
Yeah, I'm not sure 100% it really works like that. I think it sort of hits one and then bounces back. Yeah, I can't really remember. I only played it for half an hour. It's sort of interesting, but there's not a lot to it. I mean, there's one enemy in the game that can sort of catch the basketball occasionally and throw it back at you.
Not quite tennis.
No. Yeah, I don't know. It's not quite Scott Pilgrim. Let's put it that way. It's not Turtles. It's not Turtles. So I did a bit of that as well. And as usual, I'm sure I've forgotten something, but that's pretty much what I did.
Yep.
That's pretty much what I did. And that's pretty much all I did. Not a lot of any of that stuff.
Mm.
Damn you, time. Damn you, Christmas.
Well, get ready to not be able to play anything else for at least 2 more weeks, probably. Well, I mean, I guess it's not that much is going to happen coming up.
Well, yeah, I'm back at work in a week.
It's not like you're going to do some ridiculous pub crawl at New Year's or anything.
Oh God, no. I mean, I might be drinking, but probably not that bad.
And anyway, that's you have a whole extra week after that to recover, even if you were.
No, I'm back at work on the 2nd.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, you'd have to recover from the pub crawl anyway.
Yeah. I swear, I went out for a drink with a few mates from work, the Monday before. Well, I guess this Monday. I've lost track of time. Yeah, last Monday, and I think I did a slight number on me because I didn't have that much to drink, but it's a little bit more than I usually did. And I went out and didn't take a car,
right,
which is unusual for me. So I actually did some drinking, and then my stomach wasn't 100% right for most of last week. Not terribly. Do you know what I mean? Just not awful. Just a little bit off. And I think the weird eating habits of Christmas didn't help. Right?
Right. Yeah.
There's been quite a few mornings where I haven't had breakfast, and then had a big old lunch.
Yeah, and then had a roast something.
Yeah, and then had just nibbles in the evening.
Random crap food.
So my eating habits haven't been my usual proper breakfast, lunch, dinner.
I haven't been eating enough pizza.
Well, there is that. Yeah,
it's going to be rectified shortly after this podcast.
Oh, very much so. Very much so.
We've managed to not talk about food until the end of the podcast, sort of.
Sort of.
We mentioned Christmas food somewhat earlier, but.
Yeah, I have a bit of that. Don't know if you can hear that, but Bad just found a new thing to make noise with, apparently.
Well, it's still hitting something against something.
Yeah, it's coming through the walls, people. It's coming through the walls. Oh, God.
So let's end this podcast, I guess, and then we can eat pizza and prevent your child from destroying the house.
Put the drums away. Those do not sound like drums.
Nope.
Alrighty, thank you very much. The end, I guess.
The end. That's it for this year.
For this year, we're done.
Next time, we'll probably not actually do any kind of actual Game of the Year stuff. We'll probably just mention it or say what we played over the last year.
Sure, we'll do a highlight. We'll do a highlight sort of session when Dan's about.
Yeah,
how about that?
Assuming that Dan has recovered by next episode.
Yeah.
And then I guess I should do something about extra outro stuff. Go to our YouTube channel. We already mentioned that several times. in our advertising sections of this podcast, go to our YouTube channel, watch all our videos. The most recent one,
Screamer 2.
is Screamer 2 still.
Dyson Sphere program coming up next.
Yep. And then, get our podcast wherever you get this podcast, and
Get what? Sorry, your podcast to get this podcast.
get your podcast wherever you got this
Oh,
podcast.
okay. Sorry, I didn't hear that bit.
Get your podcast via podcast.
Your podcasts in podcasts.
Go to our website to get all that stuff in a form of a website, both videos and podcasts. Or go to some random bullshit social website and get a link to a place that you can get stuff.
It'll just tell you when we do stuff. Occasionally.
Occasionally. And that's
we
it.
won't flood you with crap. It's fine.
Yes.
It's fine. You can follow us. Follow me.
Maybe don't. if there's going to be a new social media shortly, maybe don't follow that one.
I'll follow it all.
Or follow it and at least remember to delete it afterwards.
The algorithm loves you.
The algorithm does not love us, I'm fairly certain. Right, that's the end. Turn this podcast off.
Hey, thanks. Bye.